Out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. A major development in the Iran war overnight as President Trump announces a last-minute ceasefire, pausing the 39-day conflict.
Well, the announcement came just 90 minutes before Donald Trump's deadline to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and his threat to end a whole civilization.
Well, Israel says it supports President Trump's decision to suspend strikes on Iran, but the two-week ceasefire does not include Lebanon.
Writing on Truth Social in the last hour, the US president said this is a big day for world peace, adding this could be a golden age for the Middle East.
But will the ceasefire last, and what could the long-term implications be? We'll have the latest reaction to what could be a moment in history.
Elsewhere, it's day 2 of the resident doctors' strike as they take 6 days of action following a long-running dispute with the government over pay.
Well, the BMA said last month that the latest offer received from the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, was insufficient, and the union accused the government of shifting the goalposts.
A very good morning. Arsenal have one foot in the Champions League semi-finals after an added time winner by substitute Kai Havertz secured a 1-0 win over Sporting Lisbon in Portugal. The two sides meet again next week at the Emirates. We'll also hear how that win for the Gunners was good news for their Premier League rivals.
Good morning. Another very warm one for the time of year to come today. That heat is not going to last through the rest of the week, though. You find out all the details with me a little later on.
Well, it's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Mark White.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast. So, Mark, it appears as though we've avoided Armageddon.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Who would have thought?
What do you make of what we've been seeing overnight?
Well, I think that this is a predictable path. We had the establishment media, of course, just obsessing over what Donald Trump was saying in terms of the rhetoric he was using about wiping out a civilization. This is Donald Trump. This is what he does. This is the way he talks. But, you get the commentators on so much of the media at the moment who just, as I say, get caught up in this need to analyse every little utterance from Donald Trump rather than actually looking at the direction of travel. It was patently obvious to anyone, really, that what Donald Trump and the US administration was looking for was an off-ramp now that they felt that the war's goals in very significantly degrading the threat from Tehran had been achieved, and they were looking for Iran to comply. So yes, of course, they were turning the screw in a verbal sense on the mullahs in Iran, but it does, constantly bemuse me when I see commentators giving almost a moral equivalence to this murderous regime in Tehran, with Tehran's saying this, the government in Iran are saying that. They're not at all agreeing with Donald Trump. Well, what would they say? This is just, exactly the playbook that Iran would adopt. At the end of the day, though, they've come to agree to this significant juncture, I think, a ceasefire that hopefully will allow more substantive talks to reach some kind of a conclusion. Let's see how it plays out over the next couple of weeks. But a very optimistic morning, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. A big day for world peace, as President Trump has put it on Truth Social in the past hour.
Yeah, indeed. He
has agreed to a 2-week conditional ceasefire with Iran and for the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz at the 11th hour.
Well, the announcement came just 90 minutes before President Trump's deadline to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and his threat, of course, to end a whole civilization.
Well, the president took to Truth Social before to announce the ceasefire, confirming that it would be a double-sided ceasefire after they received a 10-point proposal from Iran that had a workable basis on which to negotiate.
Meanwhile, an official statement from Iran has been released in which they expressed gratitude to Pakistan for their efforts to end the war.
Well, let's speak now to political commentator Duncan Barks, who joins us in the studio. What do you make of all of this, Duncan?
Well, I think collectively we all go to bed around the same time, not obviously in the same bed. So you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you do when your alarm goes off at 3 or 3:30? You look at your phone and go, what's happened?
First thing I did
And
this
that's
morning.
what we did. And I think collectively we can all breathe a sigh of relief. The question will be for how long. We now find ourselves looking ahead to Friday when the negotiations will take place involving the various parties. We don't quite know who's going to be part of those face-to-face negotiations to try and make this 10-point peace plan work. I would make the observation it's quite a fragile plan that's been put out, because one of the things that Iran is very keen to have signed off is complete control of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, I don't know if the US are going to allow that. We have seen how powerful having the Strait of Hormuz under Iranian control is in terms of a trump card, if you pardon the pun, that Iran has when it comes to leverage. We've all seen the fuel prices go up in our country. We know that in America, gas prices is going up. And this really matters domestically to Trump because, of course, he got into power. And one of the things he said was no more wars. And then all of a sudden you've seen what's playing out in Iran, and people are forking out more than they've ever forked out before for a tank of gas. So I think one of the stumbling blocks here will be ultimately who controls the Strait of Hormuz. There's a very interesting line here in a statement that came out of Iran talking about potentially reopening the strait, but there might be some technical limitations in place, which is a really interesting phrase. I think the shorthand for that is we might find ourselves in a situation where the strait is opened up so we can have all of these tankers going through, but those tankers are going to have to pay some kind of toll in order to have access to the strait or safe passage through the strait. What does that mean? Well, it means more money to Iran, which you could argue they could use to rebuild their country or perhaps invest in more defence capability, whatever form that takes. But also, if you have shipping companies who are having to pay a toll and presumably insurance premiums going up for those vessels because it's still a precarious bit of water to sail through, that cost is going to be passed on to who? I suspect all of us. So whilst it's good news this morning, in the real world that we all inhabit, when we have to fill up our cars and our vans with fuel, and we've seen, you know, some really high prices over the last couple of weeks, most people will be going, well, this is great news. Those prices will come down. I would advise at the moment we still have a bit of a wait to endure.
I think obviously what we know about Iran is that they are expert in obfuscation. They will try to play games. There is no doubt about this. So yes, you're right. We are in a delicate process. But backing that up is a man in Donald Trump and, of course, with his Israeli allies, who they know is prepared to carry out threats that they make. He's done as much in the last 39 days.
Yeah, and I mean, it is. I don't think we've ever been in a world situation that has been so based on one man's whim. I mean, we've talked about this before on GB News. You know, Trump, I believe, looks at everything as if he's still doing a business deal back in New York in the 1980s and trying to get some property at a knockdown rate or whatever. He kind of uses a lot of bluster. He tries to put his opponent or his rival, in this case Iran, on the back foot. And I mean, and that Truth Social post that we saw, a couple of days ago, that outlined this almost, you know, the end of civilization and stuff, was brutal.
Yeah.
We've never seen anything else like that.
But don't you also think he's speaking a language that the Iranian regime understands?
Absolutely.
They are medieval and they are murderous.
Yeah, I think that is the case. And it is very interesting, Mark. You made the point earlier that people are putting, you know, Iran on the same kind of level as America, certain commentators. Let us not forget, this is a brutal regime that inside the last 4 weeks, when people were rising up against it, I mean, estimates that 30 to 50,000 of their own people were killed by the regime. This is a regime that has no rights for any woman in that country. This is a regime that if you happen to be gay or bisexual, and I'm sorry to be brutal at this early hour, you might find yourself swinging from a crane. I mean, people have no rights in that country.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, we need to put that into context, because there has been some commentary over the last couple of weeks, which is almost like that Iran is the victim here. And whilst I'm not a warmonger, you've got to make the point that it is a brutal regime.
And where do we see the administration here, as far as Sir Keir Starmer is concerned, playing the role? Well, they didn't play much of a role, obviously, in the conflict, as he was at pains to tell us all of the time that we weren't involved. But clearly, the Labour government feel that this was the right path, that actually the majority of the nation may well have agreed with them. And it might be right on that, you know, that most people didn't want to get embroiled in this.
Absolutely. The polling suggests, when you ask voters about their attitudes to this current conflict, that they don't want the UK to be involved. I would make the observation, and our Prime Minister has been very clear to say that we're involved in defensive work around this, not offensive. But that also means allowing US Air Force planes to take off from our air bases in this country and take out missile silos in Iran. Now, if you're the Iranian regime, you probably see that as actually offensive. You don't see it as defensive. So I've taken the view that when Starmer says we're not part of this war, I actually think we are. I think most people as part of the Iranian regime would go, you know, potentially the UK is an enemy. In answer to your question, I think our Prime Minister will wake up about now and breathe a sigh of relief, because he doesn't have to do anything at the moment. He doesn't have to make a decision. He doesn't have to come out and say, or, you know, condemn the US for what they might have done, or to do anything else. So I think he's got a bit of breathing space at the moment. What I would say is that, and I have said this before, I have a degree of sympathy with our Prime Minister, because he is dealing with the most unpredictable American president of all time, in my view. And you know, the special relationship has taken a battering. How that will be repaired, I don't know. We know he's been quite brutal about our armed forces capability, talking about our aircraft carriers being no more than toys, pretty offensive stuff. So there's a lot of repair work to be done to the damage of the relationship. But I think this morning he'll be thinking, that's good news, as I think we all are this morning. However, what happens next?
Well, we've got the state visit, haven't we, at the end of the month, which should go some way to help to repair the special relationship. Can we talk about something else, but related?
Yes.
HMS Dragon, back in port now after a technical failure. What is going on?
Yeah, so just a bit of a recap for GB News listeners and viewers. HMS Dragon is a Type 45 destroyer. It was based in the great naval city of Portsmouth, and there was a lot of, some might say controversy, some people just going, this is ridiculous, about how long it took to get HMS Dragon deployed down to Cyprus. The backstory to this being that one of our RAF bases in Cyprus was attacked by Hezbollah with a missile. It's believed it was fired from Lebanon, so we needed to deploy a vessel. It took 3 weeks, ultimately, to get HMS Dragon down there. And a couple of the newspapers this morning and online last night are talking about the fact that she arrived in the Eastern Mediterranean weeks after being deployed, well, eventually being deployed, but she's returned to a nearby port for maintenance. And this gets us into the whole area about the capability of our Royal Navy. I'm a big Royal Navy fan. I live not too far away from Portsmouth. You know, as a kid, I used to go to Portsmouth in the 1980s because I'm that old for Navy days and things like that. Off the back of the Falklands, we had this magnificent fleet. And one of the things that the conflict with Iran has really shown is that our military capability, particularly our Royal Navy, in the stark cold light of day, it is left wanting. And without making too much of a political point, you can't hang this just on this government. Successive governments have not invested properly in our Royal Navy. And what we're seeing is, you know, one of these destroyers, a Type 45, taking weeks to get down to Cyprus. Now it's down to Cyprus. It has to go into port for maintenance. Now, you know, the MOD is saying, well, this was always part of the plan. We knew this was going to happen. But more cynical minds are going, yeah, but I mean, there's an issue with this particular vessel and Type 45 destroyers, and apparently this is to do with water supply on board the vessel, and it just feeds into the narrative that we're not well prepared.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a major issue at the end of the day, but I mean, it's certainly an issue that they need to get resolved. You can't go to sea without much in the way of fresh water supply for your sailors out there. But you're right, this has brutally exposed just the pitiful state of much of our armed forces through, as you say, not just this government, but successive governments hollowing out the defence budget. Do you think that finally this might be a wake-up call, or will they just think, oh, well, the ceasefire now in the Middle East, we can breathe a sigh of release and, you know, just channel the money back into benefits?
Well, look, I've been very clear on this. I wrote a piece for the Daily Express last week. You know, we need more warships and less welfare, right? You know, this particular conflict has really shown where we're weak when it comes to defence. You would hope this would be a wake-up call, okay? But I mean, it's very clean to see and clear to see at the moment that there is a problem with the mindset, I think, with those currently running the country. We have something, and Mark, you'll know about this, called the Defence Investment Plan that was due out before Christmas. Parliament went into recess, last week, I think it was. Nothing has seen the light of day. We're now hearing that this investment plan won't be published until after the local elections in May. Why does this matter? Because it's a 10-year plan laying out investment when it comes to the defence of this country. Yeah. Now, you would have thought, if you put this conflict with Iran to one side and the ramifications of that, you would have thought that people would have seen a few years ago just how quickly our geopolitical scene can change with Ukraine. That should have been a warning sign that all of a sudden, you know, you have someone like Russia doing what they're doing to Ukraine and everyone's scratching around thinking, how do we respond to this? That should have been a warning sign. That was, 3 years ago the Iranian conflict started. And here we are, still waiting for an investment plan to actually shore up what we're going to do for the next 10 years when it comes to the defence of this nation. And
one of the big issues here, as far as not just the defence of the realm is concerned, is actually the issue around industry. There's so many companies that are dependent on a healthy defence sector and inward investment from the government into that. Many of these companies saying that they are really struggling now without a firm commitment from government going forward to many of the shipbuilding and plane manufacturing industry.
So they can't plan. You know, they don't know about, what to invest in terms of capital and plant, what to do in terms of recruitment, because they don't know what this government wants to do with defence. I'm a little bit sad. I started reading about Winston Churchill's essays around the mid-1930s off the back of what was known as the Great War, the First World War, where everyone was disarming. And he was making the point we shouldn't disarm because Germany is unfinished business, okay? And very slowly, he was able to change the narrative and make make the government at the time see that we needed to invest in defence. And he was able to do that, and we were started to be in a position towards the end of the 1930s, before the war started, we were able to make planes and warships, etc. I only make that point because now we don't necessarily have the industrial capability we had back then to make our own aeroplanes and vessels in a way that we used to.
OK, Duncan Barks, really good to have your analysis, and we've got you back with us in the next hour.
Thank you.
Thanks, Duncan. OK, let's have a look at some of the other stories coming into the GB newsroom this morning.
And a young British woman has died whilst visiting Vietnam, reportedly in a road accident. Local media there is reporting that 19-year-old Orla Waits was travelling in northern Vietnam when she fell from the back of a motorcycle.
Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch has called for doctors to be banned from striking. Resident doctors began their 15th strike since 2023 yesterday, while hundreds of BMA staff also began a 48-hour walkout on Monday in an ongoing row over pay. Ms Badenoch said the BMA was betraying the patients that its members swore to serve.
And a 21-year-old man has died after being stabbed at the Viewpoint on Primrose Hill in London. A murder investigation has been launched by the Metropolitan Police after officers were called to the park. They added that a second man, believed to be in his 20s, was found on nearby Regent's Park Road with stab wounds.
Well, time now for the weather update.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Potentially the warmest day of the year so far. Today even warmer than yesterday, in fact. But it is turning cloudier and wetter across some more northwestern areas. We're off to a sunny start, though, for the bulk of the UK, particularly across parts of England and Wales. And that sunshine should last much of the day. It will feel quite warm, actually, today. The winds are lighter, particularly across eastern areas. But across the west, thicker clouds, still some brighter spells and very little in the way of rain. Now, temperatures could reach as high as 26 or possibly 27 degrees across the southeast, for parts of the Midlands in the low 20s quite widely. So a particularly warm day, especially for the time of year. Now that leads us into a fairly mild night as well. We could see some mist and fog around across parts of western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland as well. But temperatures will remain in the mid-teens for many of us into this evening, and the sun should last across more eastern areas into the early part of the evening as well. But you can see that cloud starting to spread into parts of Wales, into the southwest as well. North parts of Cornwall seeing some cloud by the time we get to Wednesday night. Now, the rain becomes more persistent into Thursday morning for Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland. Elsewhere, it should be a dry and relatively clear night, though there is a risk of some mist and fog patches developing by Thursday morning. It will be a slightly cooler night for more western areas, still a fairly mild night in the east, however, and still a bright, warm day for many eastern areas through Thursday. A big change, though, further west, particularly for parts of Northern Ireland, Scotland, as well as parts of West Wales through Thursday. Some areas could be a good 10 degrees cooler than today into tomorrow. So big change to cooler, more unsettled and wetter weather by Thursday. So please do enjoy the sunshine if you can. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Now, do stay with us. Still to come, we're going to cross live to Washington, D.C. to continue to get the very latest on the breaking news that a ceasefire has been agreed between the US and Iran. This is GB News Breakfast with Ellie and Mark.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you. Bulletins on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Breakfast. It's 6:24 and continuing with the breaking news now that President Trump has agreed to a 2-week conditional ceasefire with Iran and for the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz at the 11th hour. Well, the announcement came just 90 minutes before President Trump's deadline to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and his threat to end a whole civilization.
Well, the President took to Truth Social to announce the ceasefire, confirming it would be a double-sided ceasefire after they received a 10-point proposal from Iran that had a workable basis on which to negotiate. Well, we're joined now by GB News US correspondent Steve Edgington. Good morning or good evening to you where you are in California, Steve. Obviously, you've been able to watch the networks in the US over the last few hours absorb the news of this ceasefire. How have they reacted?
I think there's a real sense of relief here in the United States, particularly from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle who are concerned about domestic issues in the economy, particularly rising gas prices. Here in the United States, consumers have been hit pretty hard by inflation in gas prices. Here in California, gas is about $6-7 a gallon, which is up about $1 or $2 from before the war. So this kind of inflation was really hitting Donald Trump and the Republicans looking to the midterms later this year. So any indication that this war might end has been met with a good reaction here in the United States. The question now is whether the ceasefire can hold. And we've already heard reports that hours after the peace agreement or the ceasefire was signed, we've seen missile strikes and drone attacks in the Gulf states. And I think there is some concern here in the US that this ceasefire will not hold even for the 2 weeks that's been agreed. Of course, we're also going to see negotiations for a longer-term peace. And Donald Trump has always said at the start of this war, his aims were to prevent Iran getting a nuclear weapon, to prevent Iran from having long-range ballistic missiles, and potentially even regime change. Now, on the latter point, it seems that Donald Trump will fail to get the regime change that it's reported that the US administration was seeking or looking at when they started this operation. But on the other 2 points, on Iran not getting a nuclear weapon, potentially even handing over its nuclear-enriched materials, and on preventing Iran from getting long-range ballistic missiles, which could reach Europe or even the United States, potentially there is room to negotiate. Iran, on the other hand, have their own demands, which also seem pretty unacceptable to the United States at the moment. And these are to do with the Straits of Hormuz. And Iran is saying that they may charge $2 million for each ship to go through the strait, and Iran effectively would control that strait, potentially with Oman. So this is going to be a very, very tough negotiations over the next couple of weeks if the ceasefire holds. And both sides will negotiate very hard. There's a lot of domestic pressure, as I mentioned, on Donald Trump to end the war, because we have the midterms coming up in November where the Republicans look likely to lose the House of Representatives and potentially even the Senate. The polling here on the war in the US is very bad for the Republicans, very bad for Donald Trump. It seems to be an unpopular war. His base supports the war, but independents and other American voters are much more skeptical. So there is a huge amount of pressure, as I say, for a peace agreement to be negotiated by the president in the next 2 weeks.
OK, Stephen Edgington, thank you very much for bringing us that reaction from the US this morning.
Well, it's time now for the Great British Giveaway. Your chance, of course, to win that camper van worth more than $67,000. And on top of that, Ellie, £25,000 in cash. You can't say better than that.
It's a fantastic prize, isn't it? Here are all of the details that you need.
Everything you need to enjoy a super summer could be on us this year, as you could drive away with this very latest Benivan 4-berth camper van worth over £67,000. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, this camper van is fully equipped with its own kitchen, bathroom, dinette and plenty of storage. Plus you can drive it on your existing licence. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also get your summer sorted with a further £25,000 in tax-free cash that you could spend however you like. In total, this prize package is worth over £92,000. So make sure you secure your place in the draw. For another chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. The winner may be contacted live after all entry routes have closed. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck. Now, if you're travelling to work or school this morning, here's your traffic and travel update.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the A84 between Runnercraig and Loch Hernhead, the road is closed both ways for overnight roadworks, with access allowed during hourly amnesties. In North Somerset, the M5 northbound between junction 20 and 19 has lane closures after a crash. In Thurrock, the M25 anti-clockwise between junction 1A and 31 is also restricted after a broken down vehicle. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast and London North Western Railway report major engineering work at London Euston, with London North Western also running a reduced service between Bedford and Bletchley. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Still to come in the show. It's been a good night for Arsenal in the Champions League. We'll be going through that and all the latest sports with Aidan McGee just after the break.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every week there are stories that shape the national conversation.
We'll be discussing that.
And on Saturday Morning Live, we break them down.
Is that true? This is fascinating, isn't it?
The politics, the headlines, the debates everyone's talking about.
And the questions that you want answered. Do you think that was a legitimate attack for him to make?
What led you to set up this fantastic movement?
You know what? It's a great question, Olivia.
So what are you waiting for?
Your weekend starts here. Saturdays at 10 a.m. only on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters. Real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
24 it's Sports Time with Aidan McGee, who's here with us, and a much-needed result for Arsenal.
You could say that, Ellie. Yeah, good morning to you both. Look, they were under a bit of pressure, weren't they? They lost against Southampton last Saturday in the FA Cup. They lost in the Carabao Cup final at Wembley against Manchester City. Both of those unexpected, but they went to Portugal last night against Sporting Lisbon, and they got the job done. They looked shaky in the first 20 minutes or so. They weathered the storm. David Raya has to be now one of the best goalkeepers in the world. And guess who he was playing for just 7 years ago? Southport.
Oh.
Astonishing. Absolutely astonishing. Where they get a Spanish goalkeeper like that, put him in there, he goes to Blackburn, goes to Brentford, on to Arsenal. As Rory McIlroy said last year, never give up on your dreams, because he certainly didn't. And he was brilliant last night. He was the difference between getting the win and not. And Kai Havertz came off the bench and got the goal. We'll hear from Mikel Arteta in a minute. But you can tell from his voice that he was kind of feeling the pressure a little bit. We saw the pens, didn't we, in training. They got some stick for that. But the players, I think, as Ellie said yesterday, they looked to be enjoying themselves on the training pitch, and sometimes that's what you need. But let's hear from the Arsenal coach, Mikel Arteta, right now.
Yeah, extremely happy, obviously. It was a big night, a big moment in the season, especially where we're coming from. I think we had a point to prove. I cannot be prouder to work in a club with people that the only thing they could do is ask, what else can I do to help? And when you have people like this, I don't know if it's going to take another week or two, but something good, it will happen at the end, because we deserve it.
So that's Mikel Arteta there. He looked quite jovial there, didn't he, for once?
Did a bit.
No, you can't blame him. He got a brilliant result last night. I want to drop down just something interesting that happened, though, last night. As a result of Arsenal winning, the coefficient in the Premier League goes up. Now, what that means, to those who understand that as gobbledygook, is that the English clubs have done so well that we're not just going to get the top 4 sides going into the Champions League next season, we're going to get a 5th spot owing to our performance. And so Arsenal have done everyone a massive favour yesterday, including Liverpool, who are currently in 5th, including Aston Villa, who are in 4th, but looked a bit shaky in the last month or so. Even Chelsea will get a stay of execution, possibly, because they're down in 6th. They'll have something extra to go for, and that's just on account of English clubs doing well. Arsenal sealed the deal last night and did their rivals a big favour last night. I'm not sure they're necessarily happy about that, but it means that for the second year running, English clubs will have 5 places in the Champions League next season, which is extraordinary, given the revenue difference that makes. It means Man United are almost certainly going to be in the Champions League. I was
just going to say that, you know, you can make millions
without doubt.
Off a place in the Champions
and United,
League.
Yeah, all those clubs need desperately to be in the Champions League. And you know what? Tottenham will probably look at it and think, if we'd got our act together this season, Maybe we could have been one of those 5. Meanwhile, they've got a relegation fight at the weekend, of course. Must drop down to the Championship momentarily. Southampton went to your beloved Wrexham and got a 5-1 result. That puts them in the playoffs. The Hollywood FC, as they're known, dropped down into 7th. One of the Southampton
but it's
fans...
very close.
It is, yeah. One of the Southampton fans said last night after their 5-1 win, he said, put that in your Hollywood documentary and smoke it. And I want to touch on something that's quite close to your heart, snooker.
Oh, yes.
15-year-old Polish teenager Michał Zubacik, if I've got that name right, has become the youngest player to win a World Championship match. It is the qualifiers, and he's got 3 more rounds to go, but 15 years old. He makes Luke Littler look like a veteran in the darts, doesn't he?
Yeah, this is in the lead-up to, obviously, the World Championships at the Crucible.
Saturday, 18th of April, it starts.
And what is great about the qualifiers is you get a chance to see all this young, up-and-coming talent, and there are so many. It bodes well for the sport.
Yes, it does.
In the years ahead, there's so many really, really good little players, especially from Asia at the moment.
Can I ask you, I know it was announced a week or 2 ago, but how important is it that the World Championships stay in Sheffield at the Crucible? Because there was all sorts of talk that it would go to Saudi.
Oh, I think, you know, it's a spiritual home, you know, in Sheffield. And although, you know, there was much about the Crucible that just was not really suitable as a big sporting venue, because you could only get...
They say that about Ali Pali with darts, though. They say it's a bit rough and ready behind the scenes.
Well, yeah, I think it's more...
I won't go into detail.
It's more the number of people you could get in there, you know, but they're expanding it, and there'll be more than double the audience that will be able to get in and to watch the game. That in itself will help enhance the experience and the atmosphere.
I've been to the Crucible to see a production of the Crucible.
Oh, right,
Can you believe that?
Oh, very good.
Back in 2010, but I've never been to see the snooker.
Yeah.
There's lots of time.
Well, I'm really looking forward to it and see how Zhao Xingtong does, whether he can dispel the Crucible curse.
Lots coming up later on, by the way. We've got the...
Oh, can we touch on Southampton?
Yeah, we've done Southampton.
Oh, Brad has been in touch saying...
Oh, no.
Brad has been in touch saying, I want to hear more about Southampton beating Wrexham.
We haven't got the goals to show, unfortunately. But I did mention them.
But mention them, Bradders.
Yeah, he'll be happy now, don't worry.
He'll be happy.
Yeah, no, Southampton have been doing really well.
Great result.
Well, they changed their manager earlier in the season, Will Still, who was this kind of internet sensation, and he proved to be absolutely hopeless.
Too late in the season to... Well, you never know. They could in the qualifying.
Possible, you never know.
So what else have we got coming up for us this morning?
We've got some golf later on. We've got the Masters at Augusta National starting tomorrow. Can Rory McIlroy find that hunger to maybe retain the title? We'll see. He's got the green jacket on, hasn't he? And we've got lots more coming up.
Sort of hoodoos off his...
Yeah, freedom. We always... I think back to tennis, Roger Federer, when he won the French Open in 2009, it was the last one he couldn't do because Rafa Nadal was there. It just helped him a little bit to achieve more further in his career. So maybe it might have that effect on Rory. You never know.
OK. Aidan, thank you very much.
See you in a bit.
Thank you, Aidan.
Now, at 6:40, it's time now for our daily reflection.
The GB News Daily Reflection.
Hi, I'm Mike, a priest in the Church of England. When we experience something really good, a part of us wishes it would never end. Our favourite dish, that night out with our friends, those precious moments with loved ones. We cling to good things. When Mary Magdalene meets the risen Jesus on that first Easter day, she doesn't want the moment to end. Her friend that she'd thought was lost is alive. And in a moment of raw emotion, she grabs hold of Jesus as if to say, I'm never letting go. It's a very human reaction. But then Jesus says something perplexing to Mary. Do not cling to me, he says, for I have not yet returned to my Father. Christ wants her to move beyond thinking of him as merely friend and teacher, and to seeing him as the risen Lord of all things. Perhaps we need to undergo a similar shift. Many in our society see Jesus as a good man, a spiritual guide who taught us some useful things, and he is those things. But Easter claims more. The resurrection declares him to be the Lord over the whole world. True faith involves loosening our grip on the version of Jesus that we find manageable and allowing him to be who he truly is.
message of hope on this Wednesday morning.
Yeah, on quite hopefully a hopeful morning as well, given what has now been announced in terms of that 2-week ceasefire.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about that in a moment in the papers. But first, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, if you're heading away for the Easter break, well, low pressure brings unsettled weather to the Canary Islands as well as parts of Portugal throughout the next few days. We've got 15 degrees in Madeira, risk of showers, and 14 degrees in Lisbon, quite cool for the time of year. Elsewhere, though, as we look further east across parts of Spain and Italy, it's looking much warmer and brighter. And the showery weather that's been affecting more western areas, eastern areas of the Mediterranean looks to move away, and it will turn brighter for Greece as well. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
And I like him so much. He was the best coach that I worked with. So he's a coach that will improve the players 100%. Will give what the players needed. So I'm very happy to see him with Tottenham, because I love the club and I know he's the right one to be there.
These players, they have to buy in to what he says, and quickly, because there's only 7 games left. So do you think that's going to be the case?
I think the players will feel the passion and will understand him quickly, and he will adapt a little bit because it's just 7 games. I think, okay, from the next year, he will have more time to put his ideas and to help improve the players and with more time. So now...
Sorry, just a quick. What is he like though as a character? He seems a very fiery character, Sandro.
Yeah. He is. He's a. You're going to hear his voice around the training ground. You're going to, because he's a passionate guy. He loves football. He does everything. He watches football 24 hours. And well, it's good to have someone that loves the game like him at our club. And I'm sure the fans will love him because the fans will see, the fans will understand how deserved he is.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back at 6:46. Let's take a look at some of the newspaper front pages on this Wednesday morning.
Well, The Guardian's top story covers the outrage and fear as Trump warns civilization will die in Iran.
The Daily Mail claims that the world waited with bated breath as President Trump threatened to wipe out Iran's entire civilization.
Yet another story about President Trump's threat to wipe out Iran's population makes the front page of the Daily Telegraph.
And The Times claims that President Trump has threatened to bomb Iran into the Stone Age.
Well, joining us now to go through what's making the news is Penny Smith and Jennifer Powers. Good morning to you
Morning.
both.
Morning, ladies.
Morning.
Jennifer, first of all, civilization is not at an end as far as Iran is concerned now. Very positive developments overnight.
Indeed. I think all of America and the world are breathing a sigh of relief this morning to find out that there is this ceasefire in place for 2 weeks now. We're beginning to see cracks within the Republican coalition over the last 24 hours. We had a couple of congressmen and senators come out expressing their unease with Trump's latest round of rhetoric. We all know the phrase to take him seriously, but not literally. However, the call for the ending of civilization, I think, did cause a bit of concern, and there was a broad feeling that was perhaps bluster that had gone too far.
Penny?
Well, I think the interesting thing is now that we know that this ceasefire, I mean, who knows about this ceasefire and whether it will hold? I've had a look at the negotiating stance, and I'm just looking at it and thinking, hold on, is that actually going to be acceptable to both sides? Apparently, the US is going to agree to the acceptance of uranium enrichment, although that is that's in the Persian version, the Farsi version, but not in the English version. Lifting of all primary and secondary sanctions, guarantee not to repeat aggression against Iran, continuation of Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz, payment of compensation to Iran. Some of these things I'm thinking, hold on a second, is that actually going to play out in any way, shape or form either way? And charging fees now we hear about going through the Strait of Hormuz. And I'm just thinking all of these things, it's going to be worse after than it was before. The regime in Iran shows no sign of changing. In fact, it's actually more militant. And if we've then got on top of that, you've got no regime change and charging ships to go through the Strait of Hormuz, so much worse than before.
Well, Mark, we actually have had a view in just now saying without regime change, can we actually see peace in the Middle East?
Well, potentially not, but I think if you ask any of Iran's neighbours, and especially Israel, who put up with 47 years of Iran's malign influence on that country, whether, regime change is one thing, but whether they will settle for maybe 5-10 years more of Iran not being the threat that it was, I'm sure that they'll just settle for that in the meantime.
I think that's right, and America, to some extent, the same, in the sense that there was perhaps being polite and diplomatic, there was perhaps less than total clarity about the objectives of the war, but to degrade the military capabilities of Iran was very much near the top. And the reason for that was because, yes, the enriched uranium and the ability to have a nuclear weapon was what concerned America and regional actors, but also the missiles that Iran was able to develop and stockpile, which could deliver that bomb, were of huge concern. And it's either too early or it's too late to deal with a regime that has the capability, not just with the missiles, but to deliver nuclear bombs on a missile. So there was great concern within the West that if something wasn't done on both fronts with regard to the ballistic missile systems, but also with regard to the enriched uranium and the nuclear warheads, that it would get to a point where it was no longer possible for the US and Israel to intervene. So in that sense, this has been a tactical military success, although unfortunately we've also seen a political quagmire.
Yeah, no, I think you're right there, Jennifer. On that point, Penny, yes, you've got the real concern about the potential for Iran getting a nuclear bomb, but if they are developing and continuing to develop conventional ballistic missiles that can reach the likes of the UK, that is a massive threat. We do not have in this country a missile defence system.
No, we don't. We don't. I mean, we look at what's happened with the ship, for example, which has had to be recalled. I mean, our military has shrunk so much, and I think this is showing up what's happened over the past, well, pretty much 20 years, isn't it? That we've got smaller and smaller and smaller. We've barely got. I mean, when we talk about supporting America, allowing them to use our bases is pretty much all we've got.
Yeah.
When you look at it, from a distance and say how we would have been 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and how we are now. The other thing is that I see what you're saying, Jennifer, about the area and about the wider picture and about countries in the Middle East. But what you worry about is the fact that if you then end up with a regime which is even more embedded and it becomes about, in the future, it becomes about revenge attacks. And there are many other ways of actually destabilising other countries than just bombing them. And we've seen...
Well, we don't know. I mean, we don't know who's running Iran. I mean, hopefully the Americans are obviously having these conversations. They know the names, at least, of the people they're negotiating with. But we don't really know the nature of the regime. We don't really know what it's going to be like, whether it will be more extreme or less extreme. It's probably not possible to be more extreme, considering that they were threatening to destroy half the world with nuclear weapons, and they were, so quick to slaughter tens of thousands of their citizens. So it's unlikely it could be more extreme. But the issue of perhaps having a toll on ships to go through the Strait of Hormuz would indeed be a much worse position than the global economy was prior to this conflict.
And who was Pakistan even negotiating with at this stage, Mark, in terms of Iran? When the new Ayatollah, what we were hearing yesterday, reports that he's in a coma.
Yeah, I mean, officials within the regime will be carrying out the negotiations. To answer Penny's point from earlier, yes, the list of demands seems completely sort of unachievable in terms of what the Americans would allow Iran to get away with, but these are the start of the negotiations, not the end of the negotiations.
Yes, I realise that. And also, it's interesting how oil... I was just going to say about oil prices have gone down.
We'll come back to you in the next hour on that one. Penny Smith and Jennifer Powers and Mark White, thank you very much. We'll be back after the weather.
Warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update, brought to you from the Met Office. Potentially the warmest day of the year so far. Today even warmer than yesterday, in fact. But it is turning cloudier and wetter across some more northwestern areas. We're off to a sunny start, though, for the bulk of the UK, particularly across parts of England and Wales. And that sunshine should last much of the day. It will feel quite warm, actually, today. The winds are lighter, particularly across eastern areas. But across the west, thicker clouds, still some brighter spells and very little in the way of rain. Now, temperatures could reach as high as 26 or possibly 27 degrees across the southeast, for parts of the Midlands in the low 20s quite widely. So a particularly warm day, especially for the time of year. Now that leads us into a fairly mild night as well. We could see some mist and fog around across parts of western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland as well. But temperatures will remain in the mid-teens for many of us into this evening, and the sun should last across more eastern areas into the early part of the evening as well. But you can see that cloud starting to spread into parts of Wales, into the southwest as well. North parts of Cornwall seeing some cloud by the time we get to Wednesday night. Now, the rain becomes more persistent into Thursday morning for Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland. Elsewhere, it should be a dry and relatively clear night, though there is a risk of some mist and fog patches developing by Thursday morning. It will be a slightly cooler night for more western areas, still a fairly mild night in the east, however, and still a bright, warm day for many eastern areas through Thursday. A big change, though, further west, particularly for parts of Northern Ireland, Scotland, as well as parts of West Wales through Thursday. Some areas could be a good 10 degrees cooler than today into tomorrow. So big change to cooler, more unsettled and wetter weather by Thursday. So please do enjoy the sunshine if you can. Bye-bye.
Warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you for making us Britain's #1 news channel. Together, we have built something truly extraordinary.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the A84 between Runnercraig and Lochernhead, the road is closed both ways for overnight roadworks, with access allowed during hourly amnesties. In Warrington, the M6 southbound between Junction 21A and Junction 21 has a crash blocking 3 of 4 lanes, with traffic improving after 7:30 this morning. In North Somerset, the M5 northbound between Junction 20 and Junction 19 has an incident closing 1 lane, easing after 8:15 this morning. And on the trains, major engineering work is affecting London Euston, with reduced London North Western railway services between Bedford and Bletchley. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's a prize package worth over £92,000. There's a totally tax-free £25,000 in cash that you'll be able to spend on anything you like this year. Plus, you'll also get to drive away in a brand new Benevan 122 camper van. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, this latest 2026 model comes fully loaded with everything you'd expect. For another chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
the Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. A major development in the Iran war overnight as President Trump announces a last-minute ceasefire, pausing the 39-day conflict.
Well, the announcement came just 90 minutes before Donald Trump's deadline to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and his threat to end a whole civilization.
Well, Israel says it supports President Trump's decision to suspend strikes on Iran, but the 2-week ceasefire does not include Lebanon.
In his latest Truth Social post, the US president said this is a big day for world peace, adding this could be a golden age for the Middle East.
But big questions remain. Will the ceasefire last? And what could the long-term implications be? We're going to have the latest reaction to what could be a moment in history.
Well, elsewhere in the programme, it's day 2 of the residents' doctors' strike as they take 6 days of action following a long-running dispute with the government over pay.
The BMA said last month that the latest offer received from the Health Secretary Wes Streeting was insufficient, and the union also accused the government of shifting the goalposts.
A year on from the greatest moment of his career, Rory McIlroy is feeling confident in his words on the eve of the Masters at Augusta National as he aims to defend his title. We'll hear from him later this hour.
Good morning. Another very warm one for the time of year to come today. That heat is not going to last through the rest of the week, though. You'll find out all the details with me a little later on.
Good morning. It's just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Ellie Costello.
And I'm Mark White. Wherever you're watching, welcome along to GB News Breakfast. Well, before we get on to our top story, I want to bring you some breaking news and another major issue as far as our audience is concerned, and that is, of course, the Channel migrant crisis. And yesterday we brought you the news of crossings in the English Channel. By the end of the day yesterday, just over 130 migrants had arrived in Dover. Well, this morning, our producer in Kent has just told me that hundreds more migrants are currently crossing the English Channel. It's going to be another good day in that stretch of water between France and the UK. So without fail, of course, the people smugglers will continue to push their boats out. Now, yesterday, Ellie, we had the situation where the French, it seems, managed to slash one of the boats and were interfering in attempts to launch other boats. Funny that, given the fact that we have negotiations underway between the French and the British government for hundreds of millions more in the way of investment in the French border security, policing their own beaches, which should be part and parcel of any sovereign nation's responsibility anyway. What was also notable, Ellie, about yesterday was for the first time we saw a new type of Border Force vessel being used. I say Border Force, they've been rebranded. It's Border Security Command. These are still catamarans, but they are larger, slightly larger than the previous ones. An acknowledgement of the fact that, of course, more migrants are crossing the Channel. They need a bigger boat. Yeah. So they started operations for the first time. They're out again this morning as more migrants head towards UK waters.
And do you think that those interventions that you mentioned there are bringing the numbers down? So although we had over 100 people crossing yesterday, we can, on warm weather days, see up to 500, 600 people crossing, can't we? Is it too early to say with this spell of good weather this week?
Yeah, well, they're not bringing the numbers down because the truth of it is, even if the French were to be so incredibly competent about stopping 50%, 60, 70% of the boats crossing to the UK, all that happens is these migrants disappear back into the camps, meet up with the people smugglers again, and then a day or two later, they embark on the same journey, and this time they usually get through. So all they're really doing, I think, Ellie, is postponing the inevitable by a day or two.
OK, well,
Grim news, I'm afraid, for you this morning.
Yeah, sorry, but you're going to stay across it for us, aren't you, and bring us any latest developments here on GB News Breakfast, so do stay with us for that. Now, just coming up to 5 minutes past 7, and our top story this morning, President Trump has agreed to a 2-week conditional ceasefire with Iran. And for the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, it all came at the 11th hour.
Well, the announcement came just 90 minutes before President Trump's deadline to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And, of course, that threat that he made to end a whole civilization.
Well, the president took to Truth Social to announce the ceasefire, confirming it would be a double-sided ceasefire after they received a 10-point proposal from Iran that he said had a workable basis on which to negotiate.
Meanwhile, an official statement from Iran has been released in which they express gratitude to Pakistan on their efforts to end the war.
Well, let's get reaction now from Washington with our foreign correspondent, Sarah Firth. Really good morning to you, Sarah. I've just got a text from a friend saying, oh, thank goodness, just woken up, and it appears as though World War III has not broken out. And that does reflect, doesn't it, that sigh of relief that many people on both sides of the Atlantic and indeed around the world are feeling this morning.
Yes, good morning, Ellie and Mark. And you're absolutely right, Ellie, a sigh of relief that will be heard around the world, because you had this 11th hour pause that the president announced. You'd had a remarkable 24 hours, really, where the rhetoric had really escalated. You had the president starting off on Tuesday talking about a whole civilization dying. And then you had, before that 8 p.m. Eastern time deadline, the president speaking about this double-sided ceasefire. Importantly, the president has tied this to the immediate and safe reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, what we don't have, guys, is a draft proposal, the framework, if you like, of what exactly this pause, this deal will look like. Those details we're expecting will be hammered out possibly in Islamabad as soon as Friday, it's being reported. Now, if you have the US teams, Iranian teams meeting in Islamabad, because it's Pakistan who has brokered this pause, that will be a major development. But there are huge questions that remain unanswered here. For the time being, yes, a sigh of relief over this pause, but that could well be short-lived, because we're going to be seeing today, over the coming hours, whether or not the ships are actually able to pass through the Strait of Hormuz unhindered. And I think what's interesting in terms of the documents that we've seen so far from both the US side and from the Iranian side, there is a key detail which speaks about the Strait of Hormuz reopening, but under Iranian military coordination. Now, that could be absolutely critical, because if that means that Iran is controlling that, if there's some kind of fee perhaps attached to ships crossing safely, that is not a return to the status quo at all.
I just can't see that ever being agreed to by the US or the Israelis. But as I say, you know, we're at the start of negotiations, not at the end. Can I just ask you, Sarah, how the US media is reacting to news of this two-week ceasefire, especially, of course, the fake news, as Donald Trump refers to them?
Yes, Mark. I mean, as you'd expect, there's actually a fair amount of confusion, I think it's fair to say, uncertainty about what exactly is coming next. You know, we just don't have some of the answers that have been needed. We've had these press conferences, President Trump at the start of the week, you know, giving his usual very open, very expansive press conference. But again, doubling down, you know, he was asked in that press conference at the start of the week about some of the language he's used. So sending Iran back to the Stone Ages. He said he didn't see any problem with that language. In fact, he doubled down and said, yes, it would be Stone Ages. They would be bombing bridges, power plants, if Iran didn't agree to some kind of a ceasefire. I think what's interesting here is that both sides, both Washington and Tehran, they're framing this as a win for them. Now, that's understandable to some extent. You know, Washington is saying Iran blinked. Tehran is saying they managed to get Washington to back down. I do think what's interesting is that, look, militarily, there is no question that Iran has been damaged seriously by US action. Strategically, though, there is a serious argument here about whether Tehran is going to emerge from this with new leverage. Guys, they've been nicknaming the possibility of Iran setting some kind of fee or coordination for ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz. That's been nicknamed the Tehran toll. But if that were to happen, there are real criticisms here that that would essentially put Iran in a stronger position than it was before the conflict started. And one other thing that I think is getting quite overlooked is the fact that, you know, the Iranian people, this whole conflict, certainly at the beginning, Washington had sort of framed this through a moral lens. So part of the reasoning was that you'd had this brutal crackdown by the Iranian regime, killing its own people who were rising up and fighting for freedom. And I think that's been lost a little bit along the way in the sort of chaotic nature of this, the escalatory language from all sides. That those are the people on the ground, the Iranian people, that you know, we're certainly concerned, I think, at some of the language coming out of Washington about the targeting of those types of infrastructure that would cause civilian disruptions. So, you know, there is a real sense here of relief that you had this 11th hour off-ramp. The question now, though, is this a real and lasting diplomatic off-ramp that can be built on, or is it just a temporary silencing of the guns?
Sarah Firth, as always, really good to see you live from Washington for us. Thank you very much.
Well, some breaking news for you now. Yes, the Prime Minister will travel to the Middle East today to meet allies and support the ceasefire.
Yes, in meetings with regional leaders, Sir Keir Starmer will reiterate unwavering UK support and a need for a long-term diplomatic resolution to make sure the ceasefire leads to a lasting agreement. We're also hearing that he's going to meet British servicemen and women in the region and thank them for the work they have done in intercepting drones.
Well, we're joined by the political commentator Duncan Barks now. Keir Starmer going off to the Middle East.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I didn't see that one coming. So there's a statement that's been released. You just referred to it. I welcome the ceasefire agreement reached overnight, which will bring a moment of relief to the region and the world. Together with our partners, we must do all we can to support and sustain this ceasefire, turn it into a lasting agreement and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. I'm the first to say I've been on GB News in the past and said that Keir Starmer needs to really demonstrate some leadership. He always seems to be on the back foot, and we find ourselves talking about where's our Prime Minister, what's he saying, what's he doing? Looks like this morning he's doing something.
Well, we were asking that last hour, weren't we?
Yeah.
Already, though, lots of views coming in. Sean's saying, is this the Prime Minister just trying to make political capital after doing virtually nothing to help? Somebody else, Rob, has been in touch saying, now that all the hard work has been done, he's getting involved.
That's the way you can look at it. I mean, you know, he's a politician, so he's going to try and work out how he can get...
when Cyprus got bombed?
Exactly.
Where was he?
You know, and I think there will be a sense of people just going, oh, right, Keir, you're here now, are you? Yeah. You know, and it almost does feed into Trump's narrative as well. You know, I mean, he's been pretty unpleasant to our Prime Minister. Some might say with good reason, you know, comparing him to Neville Chamberlain in the past. And a brief history lesson, you know, Neville Chamberlain was seen as the great appeaser and didn't do enough really to take the fight to Hitler. So, I mean, you could argue that there is this situation developing where it's just like Starmer's not said a great deal recently. He's been walking this political tightrope for a couple of reasons. His Labour backbenchers certainly don't support a greater involvement with this conflict. And the polling in this country, the majority of British people don't support Britain getting involved. So Starmer has to try and walk, and has been walking, this tightrope in order to politically stay on side with not only his own backbenchers, but people in this country, but also to try and not upset Trump too much. And I think Donald Trump, well, it'll be interesting to see Donald Trump's reaction to this, indeed, if he does make a reaction to our Prime Minister jetting off to the Gulf.
What can he practically do in terms of supporting and sustaining this ceasefire? He says he's going to do this together with our partners.
Well, I think he can be seen as a convener. I mean, you know, we've had this... What was this phrase, Mark, a while ago? The coalition of the willing was bandied around over Ukraine and stuff.
Yes.
And I think he sees himself as this person, like, I bring everyone together. It's almost like Gordon Brown. Do you remember the financial crash of 2008? Gordon Brown was seen as he wanted to be seen, and some say he was painted as this guy who brought world leaders together to take us out of this global recession. And I think Starmer would quite like a bit of that, because it might help his poll ratings.
Bring them together, but offer what?
Well, what can they do?
We can't even put proper maritime assets out in the Eastern Mediterranean at the moment. What are we really bringing to the party?
Well, you see, again, I think it just feeds into this idea that our Prime Minister is like, he's not a leader, he's a manager. It's like, well, let's all come together and have a chinwag about it, a talking shop about it.
David Brent.
That's a really good description. So, and I think that's how it looks. And again, it does go full circle. It brings us back into this whole area where, realistically, if you look from a military point of view, an armed forces point of view, what can we do, what can we offer? Sadly, the answer is very little.
And what I'm really fascinated about is where we go now in terms of the relationship between the US and the UK. I have no doubt the special relationship is going to stand the test of time. It will be absolutely fine. But the personal relationship between Keir Starmer and Donald Trump now, that's just an end, isn't it?
It's battered. I don't know if it's beyond repair. I think, you know, we have a lot of politicians in this country, like the Lib Dem leader, Sir Ed Davey, just saying the King's trip to the US should not go ahead. I think it should go ahead, because one of the great things about our monarchy, and particularly when you're dealing with a personality like Donald Trump, that's going to repair a lot of the damage.
We need this soft power more now than ever.
Soft power is so important. It'll be fascinating, as I said earlier, to see what, if anything, the US President sticks on Truth Social regarding our Prime Minister in the future, and then we'll get a real indication about how damaged that relationship is and whether or not it can be repaired.
Duncan, thank you for joining us. Thank you. Well, just to bring you this post from Keir Starmer on X saying, I welcome the ceasefire agreement reached overnight, which will bring a moment of relief to the region and the world. Together with our partners, we must do all we can to support and sustain the ceasefire, turn it into a lasting agreement and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Do keep your views coming through. You can see so many.
You can imagine that one or two of our audience aren't too enamoured with Sir Keir Starmer's decision finally to head out to that region.
Yes, Ghost Rider's been in touch saying how he has the gall to jet off to the Middle East and try and take credit for his weakness in this Iranian crisis. Makes you very angry. We'll put it that way, shall we?
Don Cole says, Starmer's got some brass neck. Hope POTUS tells him to do one.
Yeah. Keep those views coming in. Now, 17 minutes past 7, let's take a look at some other stories coming into the newsroom this morning.
A young British woman has died while visiting Vietnam, reportedly in a road accident. Local media report that 19-year-old Orla Waite was travelling in Hac Giang Lup in northern Vietnam when she fell from the back of a motorcycle.
The Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch has called for doctors to be banned from striking. Resident doctors began their 15th strike in the past 3 years yesterday, while hundreds of BMA staff also began a 48-hour walkout on Monday in an ongoing row over pay. Mrs Badenoch said the BMA was betraying the patients that its members swore to serve.
A 21-year-old man has died after being stabbed at the Viewpoint on Primrose Hill in London. A murder investigation has been launched by the Metropolitan Police after officers were called to the popular park. They added that a second man, believed to be in his 20s, was found on nearby Regent's Park Road, also suffering stab wounds.
Now, it's meant to be gorgeous weather today, isn't it, Mark?
Well, so we're told, yeah, for quite a few days, hence the fact that, as we speak, we've got migrants crossing the channel. Sorry to keep bringing it back to that, but, you know, it's
But
my
the two
thing.
do come as a package, don't they? As a package pairing. Anyway, it is 25, 26 degrees, I think, today. Annie Shuttleworth's got all the details for you.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Potentially the warmest day of the year so far. Today even warmer than yesterday, in fact. But it is turning cloudier and wetter across some more northwestern areas. We're off to a sunny start, though, for the bulk of the UK, particularly across parts of England and Wales. And that sunshine should last much of the day. It will feel quite warm, actually, today. The winds are lighter, particularly across eastern areas. But across the west, thicker clouds, still some brighter spells and very little in the way of rain. Now, temperatures could reach as high as 26 or possibly 27 degrees across the southeast, for parts of the Midlands in the low 20s quite widely. So a particularly warm day, especially for the time of year. Now that leads us into a fairly mild night as well. We could see some mist and fog around across parts of western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland as well. But temperatures will remain in the mid-teens for many of us into this evening, and the sun should last across more eastern areas into the early part of the evening as well. But you can see that cloud starting to spread into parts of Wales, into the southwest as well. North parts of Cornwall seeing some cloud by the time we get to Wednesday night. Now, the rain becomes more persistent into Thursday morning for Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland. Elsewhere, it should be a dry and relatively clear night, though there is a risk of some mist and fog patches developing by Thursday morning. It will be a slightly cooler night for more western areas, still a fairly mild night in the east, however, and still a bright, warm day for many eastern areas through Thursday. A big change, though, further west, particularly for parts of Northern Ireland, Scotland, as well as parts of West Wales through Thursday. Some areas could be a good 10 degrees cooler than today into tomorrow. So big change to cooler, more unsettled and wetter weather by Thursday. So please do enjoy the sunshine if you can. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Well, still to come in the programme, will the ceasefire hold? And what could it mean for the relationship between the US and the UK? That's next.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Every week there are stories that shape the national conversation.
We'll be discussing that.
And on Saturday Morning Live, we break them down.
Is that true? This is fascinating, isn't it?
The politics, the headlines, the debates everyone's talking about.
And the questions that you want answered. Do you think that was a legitimate attack for him to make?
What led you to set up this fantastic movement?
You know what? It's a great question, Olivia.
So what are you waiting for?
Your weekend starts here. Saturdays at 10 a.m, only on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It is 24 minutes past 7. Now, early this morning, President Trump announced a last-minute ceasefire, pausing the war in Iran.
Well, the ceasefire is set to last for 2 weeks, and it's also been agreed that the Strait of Hormuz will reopen, and this agreement, of course, was reached at the 11th hour.
Well, this morning, we're asking whether or not the ceasefire will actually hold and what exactly this means for relations between the US and the UK.
Well, we're joined now by journalist and political commentator Jonathan Liss and former Conservative MP Anna Firth. Good morning to you both. Lovely to see you. Jonathan, as Margaret Thatcher would once say, rejoice, just rejoice at this news.
Well, she did say that, but I don't think she'd have said it in this particular case, because she would have seen this for the absolute car crash that it has been. Let's just take a step back, Mark, and think about what this has really been about in the last couple of days. Donald Trump literally threatened the death of a civilization. That's genocide by any other name. Iran did not open the Straits of Hormuz. The Straits of Hormuz were open until Donald Trump launched the war. Even on Donald Trump's own terms, this whole ceasefire deal was about getting the world back to the situation it was already in. If anyone just had, landed on Earth in the last couple of days, having been on Mars or whatever, they'd have assumed that Iran had kept the Straits of Hormuz closed for the last 10 years. And this was a long planned war to finally open it and sort of liberate the global economy. But of course, that's not the case. Iran now has more leverage than it had before because it's proven to the world that it can successfully choke one of the most important waterways in the world for the global economy. And that the US, with all its military, economic, political superiority, can do nothing about it. So I don't exactly know where this goes. All I know is that Iran is now much stronger than it was before, and the United States has been shattered, sort of morally, certainly. Politically, it's now completely isolated. It's alienated from its allies. And also militarily, it has not been able to achieve any of the objectives that it sort of set out before, such as sort of restricting Iran's nuclear capability or regime change. Really, the only thing it can manage for 2 weeks is something that Iran had before.
Anna, let's bring you in. Is Iran in a stronger position than it was before the war? Where does this leave us? And do you think the ceasefire can hold?
We absolutely have no idea the answers to those questions at the moment because we've no idea what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks. But I think it is good news that this ceasefire has been announced. There is now an opportunity for Trump to negotiate, and I hope he doesn't lose sight of the whole thing that's one of the big things behind this, which is disarming Iran's nuclear capabilities and making sure that its ballistic missiles have also been disarmed. Because we mustn't forget that Iran has been the biggest sponsor of terrorism around the world in recent years. And we cannot have the world held to ransom by one country. So I'm pleased that this ceasefire has come about. I don't condone Trump's language in any way, but the ultimatum clearly has had an effect. What I think is utterly embarrassing is to see our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, sort of trying to jump onto the bandwagon, too little, too late, rushing off to the Middle East. Now, we've got no idea for what purpose, we've got no idea what he's trying to achieve, following on from the complete debacle relating to HMS Dragon, which is still in a dry dock, not actually able to defend our base in Cyprus. I'm afraid it's too little too late from Starmer, and once again, he looks like a Johnny-come-lately.
Jonathan, to say that Iran is stronger than it was before is patently absurd. They might be more belligerent, yes, but they have absolutely been bombed very significantly in terms of their capabilities to launch missiles and drones. They are not the threat that they were previously. That's demonstrably true.
Well, obviously, militarily, they're weaker. I never said they're militarily stronger.
Well, that's kind of an important factor, isn't it?
Well, I mean, the United States I would say the United States is in a much weaker position. This has been an unmitigated strategic disaster for the United States. Do you tell me, Mark, what has the United States achieved from this 5-week-long campaign of bombing? The United States has shown that it cannot even defeat such a power as Iran. The United States has not been able to enforce regime change that they thought they were going to be able to do. When Netanyahu went to the United States, we learned yesterday in reporting, I think, from the New York Times, that Netanyahu went to deliver his, the same speech he's been giving United States presidents for the last 40 years about how it would be so great for the United States to join this war, basically to deliver Israel's interests. And no US president has been stupid enough to believe him until now. So when he did that and said that Iran wouldn't be able to choke the Straits of Hormuz, wouldn't be able to retaliate against its neighbors or wouldn't want to, all of those things turned out to be true. There wasn't regime change, Venezuela style. There's no puppet regime now in Tehran. The regime is probably going to be more radical than it was before because they're so angry about what's happened. Iran had negotiated in good faith under Obama and sort of agreed that deal which Trump tore up. Iran had even been negotiating up to the final minute, and they and the United States disregarded that and attacked them anyway. So what exactly has the United States achieved? And there's no evidence, by the way, that if they were enriching uranium, they have any less incentive to do that now than they did before. So you tell me what the United States achieved from this and how Iran is now so much weaker other than militarily.
Well, I would suggest that perhaps what they have achieved is, after 47 years of this malign influence right around that region, that has been significantly degraded, perhaps for the next 5, maybe 10 years, and in such a volatile region where they come under daily threat from Iran and its proxies. I would say that's probably welcomed by many people in that region. What you say, Anna?
Iran can take the Straits of
Jonathan, let Anna have the final word here. Anna.
Thank you, Ellie. Well, I absolutely agree with that. Remember that Iran was not prepared to disarm its military installations all through these negotiations, which were aimed at achieving that end result. Iran was not actually ultimately prepared to do that. That is a security risk, not only for the region, but wider than that. And if that is deterred, if Iran is no longer able to be the state-sponsored terrorist that it's been throughout the world, then that is a good thing, and that is something which I think the people of Iran will celebrate.
OK, Anna Firth and Jonathan Liss, we're out of time with you both, I'm afraid, but thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you both.
On GB News Breakfast.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now, just time to tell you about the Great British Giveaway. It's a goodie, isn't it? 92 grand this prize is worth, Mark. And you like the sound of it, don't you?
Oh, well, I certainly like the sound of a motorhome. That would be great. And 25 grand is obviously not too bad.
Have you petrol?
Yes.
Very good.
Here's all the details you need to know.
Everything you need to enjoy a super summer could be on us this year, as you could drive away with this very latest Benivan 4-berth camper van, worth over £67,000. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, this camper van is fully equipped with its own kitchen, bathroom, dinette and plenty of storage. Plus, you can drive it on your existing licence. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also get your summer sorted with a further £25,000 in tax-free cash that you could spend however you like. In total, this prize package is worth over £92,000. So make sure you secure your place in the draw. For another chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. The winner may be contacted live after all entry routes have closed. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck.
Well, a year on from completing his career Grand Slam, can Rory McIlroy defend even his title at the Masters? Aidan McGee will tell us all about that in the sport next.
Thank you for making us Britain's #1 news channel. Together, we have built something truly extraordinary.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the A84 between Runnercraig and Lochernhead, the road is closed both ways for overnight roadworks with access only during hourly amnesties. In Warrington, the M6 southbound between junction 21A and 21 has a crash closing 3 of 4 lanes, expected to clear by 8. In North Somerset, the M5 northbound between junction 20 and 19 is down to 3 lanes after an accident, causing 30-minute delays. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast and London North Western Railway have major engineering work at London Euston, plus reduced service between Bedford and Bletchley. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're
the failure is...
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back at 7:37, and it's sports time with Aidan McGee.
Oh, yes, it is.
Should we talk about Rory McIlroy?
Yes.
How's he looking? Do you think he's feeling calmer?
Yeah, I do, actually, and he'll say that himself when we hear from him in a few moments' time. But, look, going into that tournament last year at the Masters at Augusta National, Ellie, he was somebody who looked bedraggled. He looked as if, well, he hadn't won a major since 2014. It was a hell of a long time for a player who shows such consistencies between the majors and someone who had achieved so much early on in his career. It was the problem, not just the major, but also getting the Masters. That's the only one he hadn't done. And so he won it last year, famously, didn't he? And do you know what the perks of winning the Masters are? You don't just get a green jacket, you get one to keep for you. You don't just wear it, you keep it.
For the rest of your life.
Yeah, you do. You put it in your wardrobe.
And you're in charge of the menu for the Masters dinner.
Is that? Oh, yes, that's right. I heard that. Yeah, that's right. I haven't got that on my list, though. So
I say that's a perk.
I'll add that. Oh, yeah, definitely, yeah. It depends what the grub is, doesn't it? But,
yeah, of course.
But you get a reserved parking spot as well at Augusta National, which is really impressive.
It's worth having.
And you're a lifetime patron.
Yes, it's probably similar at Wimbledon, isn't it? When you win Wimbledon down there. But yeah, only the sixth man to win the career Grand Slam. But yeah, he just looks a little bit kind of freer now. And I think
he's got that monkey off his back.
Yes, he has. And you know, he really relaxed after those tournaments last year, and or the ones immediately after Augusta, and he just felt as if he wasn't cared. He wasn't bothered then. He actually said he didn't want to be here at one of the tournaments later in the year. I think it was the Open. So he's a bit different now. But let's have a listen to what he said yesterday at the press conference.
For the past, 17 years, I just could not wait for the tournament to start. And this year, I wouldn't care if the tournament never started. So that's sort of the difference. It's completely different. I feel so much more relaxed. I know that I'm going to be coming back here for a lot of years. Going to enjoy the perks that the champions get here, and doesn't make me any less motivated to go out there and play well and try to win the tournament. But yeah, just more relaxed about it all.
Very relaxed.
Sorry?
Very relaxed.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and that should bode well for how he plays in the tournament. He's underway tomorrow from 3:31, not local time, our time. I think it's 10:31 local time, and Scotty Scheffler's out at 6:44. He's the world number one. He's won it twice before. My money very much on him.
OK, great. Should we talk about England and Scotland fans? They're hoping to get tickets for this summer's World Cup.
They are. They are indeed.
But the prices are through the roof.
Oh, you could say that, Ellie. I mean, look, this is the problem. We thought this would happen. We thought that all these tickets would just go through the roof. When we, as you said, they've actually, I mean, the cheapest England ticket on the resale site is £631. Now, the problem here is that if you bought them direct from FIFA, they'd be face value, but they've gone on sale on the resale sites.
It's a scandal, I tell you.
It is a scandal because, we're seeing what the prices here. I mean, the face value of some of these tickets would be £201, very precise. Now it's up to kind of £628, and these are ordinary fans just going to venues in Dallas and New York, etc. Scotland and England fans. What's worse, for my money, is that FIFA, on the resale sites, take a 15% commission from both the seller and the buyer. This is all about money making. You know what? When I was in Ghana in 2008 at the Africa Cup of Nations, I spoke to some of the US delegation who were trying to bid for the World Cup again, and they said FIFA told them they were desperate after 1994 to get back to having the World Cup in the States because they made so much money last time. This is their money pit this time. We've got more venues, we've got more teams. Scotland are there, which means that everyone loves hosting Scotland because, the fans are going to be there for days on end. They're going to be spending money in the city. You've got England there as well. It's probably a disappointment that some of the host nations here didn't get there, but it's going to be one big money pit, and that's what it's all about. And there was no response from FIFA to that yesterday either, which was
Well, I don't want to open a can of worms, but
no, please don't.
What on earth does FIFA do with all this money?
It goes towards the football family, don't you know? Grassroots football. Look, you don't know. It's impossible. It's a private organisation, so it's very difficult to trace where their money goes. But I don't want to speculate any further.
No, please don't.
But nonetheless, given the cost of travel, the difficulty booking flights, because they're so scarce, that automatically supply and demand comes into play, and it pushes the price up. But when you're talking about a ticket for a group game costing in excess of £600, I just find that extraordinary for what's meant to be the working man's game, or the working person's game, shall we say.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much.
I want to talk about Sami Nasri later on. Very funny about his takeaway account.
Have we got time to talk about Sami?
Not this hour.
Not this
hour. Next hour, though, don't worry. I'll be all over it.
Excellent.
We'll stay tuned in for that one. Aidan, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for bearing with our guests.
Now, do stay with us. Still to come, rural islanders in parts of the British Isles are being affected by the jet fuel crisis. We're going to be talking about that in the papers. That's up next. But first, here's the forecast across Europe.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello. If you're heading away for the Easter break, well, low pressure brings unsettled weather to the Canary Islands as well as parts of Portugal throughout the next few days. We've got 15 degrees in Madeira, risk of showers, and 14 degrees in Lisbon, quite cool for the time of year. Elsewhere, though, as we look further east across parts of Spain and Italy, it's looking much warmer and brighter. And the showery weather that's been affecting more western areas, eastern areas of the Mediterranean looks to move away, and it will turn brighter for Greece as well. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
We brought you the story of a pub in Dorset who launched a desperate appeal to find its beloved stuffed toy badger, which was stolen from their boozer. Well, we're delighted to bring you some exclusive happy news. The badger has returned. I'm delighted now to be joined by the governor of the pub. That's the Oddfellow Arms in Wimborne, Callum Brooks. Callum, hallelujah, the badger is back.
He's back, yeah. Can you see him okay? He's sitting right here with me. Yeah, no, he's back. He's back safe and sound, well-nourished, and he's extremely happy. So delighted to have him back.
Callum, it's such a good story because you put the wanted poster out and we were on yesterday and you said, look, you don't want anyone to get into trouble. No, we all have a couple of bevies. We all do silly things. Return it. There'll be no problem. Tell us, how did it appear? What, just like on the doorstep? How did you get the badger back?
I got a phone call from the lady this morning, and I think it was exactly what we said yesterday. I think it's finally reached her. It was a few drinks too many that's resulted in a bit of a prank that's kind of escalated until the fact, she's become notified. And ultimately she's done a very brave and admirable thing, which I have a lot of respect for. So Badger's been extremely well cared for, and the story's got the perfect ending, which we hoped.
And did she drive the Badger around, or did she like use an intermediary to drop it off? Is it all a bit cloak and dagger? Tell us about it.
No, she drove him round. She had a cup of tea.
Beautiful.
Badger's turned back. He's got a lovely scarf on. She did intend to bring him back Saturday morning, but we was closed. I think then life got carried away for a couple of days, and before she knew it, it had blown up. She's made a donation to the Badger charity as well.
GB News, the People's Channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
the Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
We are going through the papers this morning with Penny Smith and Jennifer Powers. Morning, you two.
Good morning.
Now, we are actually going to stay away from Iran in this paper section. I'm going to look at some other stories that are going on. Penny, let's have a look at the knife crime hotspot map that's going to target the most dangerous streets in Britain. This is in the Telegraph this morning.
It's in the Telegraph, but it's in a lot of other papers, because this is actually quite a big initiative, and it's about and we need to get a handle on knife crime, because as we know, it has been weirdly. I looked at the figures, and to my mind, I thought it had just been going up and up and up and up and up and never going down, but in fact, it has fallen by 8.6%. The year ending September last year. But this is a new development. They're going to do this mapping technology so that they can pinpoint the areas where the most knife crime happens, because there is such a thing as this as a kind of map where you are more likely to be, where those are more likely to be committed. So what they're going to do is they're going to fund police surges in the 27 force areas where 90% of the knife crime happens in England and Wales. They're going to have increased patrols, CCTV cameras to record any offences, live facial recognition vans. I know those are sort of quite controversial, but knife arches as well in these areas. They're even in some areas going to provide extra support to schools in these areas so that they mentor high-risk vulnerable children, and how they have chaperones to take people to and from school. The thing is that, as we know, knife crime doesn't just have, it isn't just like, oh, there's a knife crime, it's okay, everything else is okay around it. It isn't. You've got to get into the root of the problem and try and cut it off at source and make children feel safer in the first place.
I have to say, I thought this was good news and something they should be doing, but I have to say I was a bit surprised that the police don't actually have a map of all crimes already. I mean, I suppose I just, Mark's looking at me like, what are you thinking? But honestly, shouldn't all the police forces in the country have access to and be contributing to, where you can actually do searches based, you know, on any geographical area, postcode, or by type of crime, where literally you go into a system and you can, zoom in and you can say, oh, what are the 100 highest, knife crime hotspots, or the 20 highest, or whatever. I mean, why does this not exist already, Mark?
Well, they do have an idea of sort of crime hotspots and the like, but in terms of detailed analysis of crime trends, it could certainly be a better system. But the thing that strikes me, Jennifer, about this initiative, another initiative to try and tackle knife crime, when the police are, by the Home Secretary of the day, empowered to go after the perpetrators of knife crime in these hotspots, it often means stop and search. And then there's the backlash from communities who say what you're doing is you're stopping young black lads.
Yeah, well, they disproportionately commit most knife crimes, so that would be where the numbers lead you.
Do you think we need to get beyond then that sort of age-old sort of come back at any time you get stop and search, an acknowledgement that actually the vast majority of people who are being killed and injured in inner cities as a result of knife crime are young black men, and indeed the majority of perpetrators are young black men.
Well, you know, it's, as we all know, it's important that police with consent, and you know, that's why community engagement is so important. But I would like to live in a country where the evidence leads us to what needs to be done, and people are treated, you know, based on their actions. And if there's a police, if the police ascertain that there's a particular knife crime hotspot, then I would want them to take action to protect everyone that's living in that area or walking through it on any given day. So yeah, let's hope this leads to a real crackdown, as Penny said, in this really crucial area.
Well, let's hope so. Jennifer, let's stay with you, shall we, and talk about Wireless. Wireless Festival has been cancelled after ministers banned Kanye West, who was its headline act.
Yeah, this has gotten such big headlines because Kanye was...
Just as you answer that, could you just take your necklace to one side?
I'm so sorry.
We're being treated to the percussion of your necklace against the
Let's
mic.
fix that.
It's a very lovely necklace.
Well, yes. So yes, wearing, I'm sure, far more jewellery than I do, Kanye West, the infamous music star, was due to headline this massive festival in North London this summer. I think it was 3 dates, consecutive days, and his visa has been rescinded. So he made an online visa application earlier in the week. The government has stepped in and said he's not allowed to travel. Therefore, the festival has had to be cancelled. Everyone who bought tickets will be refunded. But of course, there may be, you know, a court case against the government for, you know, not allowing, in effect, the festival to go ahead, and it really comes down to his hugely racist and anti-Semitic tweets and proclamations over the past couple of years. You really don't get more anti-Semitic than releasing a song that Heil Hitler. You know, the things that he said about the Jewish community and other minority groups are truly awful and you know, horrific. And so I suppose it comes down to a community cohesion argument versus a free speech argument. We have the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats both welcoming Labour government's action on this, as well as the Board of Deputies of British Jews. So a lot of the Jewish community coming out very much in favour of this ban.
OK, Jennifer and Penny, thank you very much. That's all we have time for the moment.
Yeah, OK. Well, Wireless Festival has released a statement saying the festival was cancelled and that refunds would be issued if it continued that anti-Semitism in all its forms is abhorrent. And we recognise the real and personal impact that these issues have had. As Ye, or Kanye West, as you may know him, said today, he acknowledges that words alone are not enough. And in spite of this, still hopes to be given the opportunity to begin a conversation with the Jewish community in the UK.
OK, time now to get a quick wrap of the weather.
Warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update, brought to you from the Met Office. Potentially the warmest day of the year so far. Today even warmer than yesterday, in fact. But it is turning cloudier and wetter across some more northwestern areas. We're off to a sunny start, though, for the bulk of the UK, particularly across parts of England and Wales. And that sunshine should last much of the day. It will feel quite warm, actually, today. The winds are lighter, particularly across eastern areas. But across the west, thicker clouds, still some brighter spells and very little in the way of rain. Now, temperatures could reach as high as 26 or possibly 27 degrees across the southeast, for parts of the Midlands in the low 20s quite widely. So a particularly warm day, especially for the time of year. Now that leads us into a fairly mild night as well. We could see some mist and fog around across parts of western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland as well. But temperatures will remain in the mid-teens for many of us into this evening, and the sun should last across more eastern areas into the early part of the evening as well. But you can see that cloud starting to spread into parts of Wales, into the southwest as well. North parts of Cornwall seeing some cloud by the time we get to Wednesday night. Now, the rain becomes more persistent into Thursday morning for Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland. Elsewhere, it should be a dry and relatively clear night, though there is a risk of some mist and fog patches developing by Thursday morning. It will be a slightly cooler night for more western areas, still a fairly mild night in the east, however, and still a bright, warm day for many eastern areas through Thursday. A big change, though, further west, particularly for parts of Northern Ireland, Scotland, as well as parts of West Wales through Thursday. Some areas could be a good 10 degrees cooler than today into tomorrow. So big change to cooler, more unsettled and wetter weather by Thursday. So please do enjoy the sunshine if you can. Bye-bye.
Warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you to our global community for watching and listening to GB News. We're not only the #1 news channel in Britain, we're chosen by you around the world.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the M6 southbound near Warrington, between Junction 21A and Junction 21, a serious road traffic collision is closing 3 of 4 lanes, with delays of around 1.5 hours expected. Around London, significant congestion is reported on the M4 eastbound at Junction 33, affecting the off-slip at Capel Lanhill turn. Also on the trains, Avanti West Coast has major engineering work at London Euston, while London North Western Railway is dealing with significant engineering work at Euston, plus a reduced service between Bedford and Bletchley. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Everything you need to enjoy a super summer could be on us this year, as you could drive away with this very latest Benivan 4-berth campervan. This campervan is fully equipped with its own kitchen, bathroom, dinette and plenty of storage. We'll also get your summer sorted with a further £25,000 in tax-free cash that you could spend however you like. For another chance to win a campervan and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck!
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News,
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Good morning. Sir Keir Starmer will travel to the Middle East today as President Trump announces a last-minute ceasefire, pausing the war in Iran.
Well, taking to social media in the last hour, the Prime Minister said he welcomed the ceasefire, adding, "We must do all we can to support and sustain it."
President Trump hailed today as the start of a golden age for the Middle East. But big questions remain. Will the ceasefire last? And what could the long-term implications be?
Also in the programme, it's day 2 of the resident doctors' strike as they take 6 days of action following a long-running dispute with the government over pay. We're live on the picket line.
the British Medical Association say that the government moved the goalposts in negotiations last minute. The government remain steadfast that that deal was generous. The impact for patients is many more cancelled appointments.
And grab your sun cream. Today is set to be the hottest day of the year so far. We're going to be live on the South Coast later on in the show.
Arsenal appear to have 1 foot in the Champions League semi-finals after an added-time winner by substitute Kai Havertz secured a 1-0 win over Sporting Lisbon in Portugal. The two sides meet again in the second leg at the Emirates next Wednesday. Tonight, it's the turn of Liverpool, who face holders PSG in Paris.
Good morning. Another very warm one for the time of year to come today. That heat is not going to last through the rest of the week, though. You'll find out all the details with me a little later on.
Good morning. It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Ellie Costello.
And I'm Mark White. A very warm welcome to GB News Breakfast. Well, just before we get to our top story, the unfolding crisis, of course, in Iran, bring you up to date on the situation in the English Channel. Another issue, of course, that is very close to your hearts in terms of the concerns people in this country have. We've now got confirmation from our producer in Kent that several small boats are in the water, making their way towards UK waters, hundreds of migrants on board. And this follows 137 migrants, roughly speaking, who arrived in Kent yesterday, taking advantage of that improvement in the weather forecast. And they've been using, Ellie, a new type of vessel as well. It's a catamaran like the old vessels, but slightly larger, and the acknowledgement that the workload that these boats are having to deal with is increasing all the time. So the latest breaking news at the moment is that several migrant boats are in the water heading to the UK as we speak.
Well, you're going to stay across those developments for us, aren't you, Mark? And you'll bring that to us on GB News.
I think we can also bring you some more breaking news this time out of Lebanon. We've some live images that we can show you. This is Tyre in Lebanon with a massive explosion that's just happened within the last minute or two. An illustration, I think, of what Benjamin Netanyahu was saying overnight, in that, yes, he signed up to the ceasefire as far as it pertains to Iran, but they are going to continue, Israel that is, prosecuting the war against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon.
Yeah, this does not include Lebanon, just a really important thing to reflect there, as you can see from those pictures on the screen. Thank you, Mark, for bringing those two breaking lines to us. Now, just coming up to 4 minutes past 8, let's get into politics, shall we, and speak now to Shadow Housing Secretary Sir James Cleverly. Very good morning to you, Sir James.
Good morning.
Can we start with the breaking news in the past hour from the Prime Minister, who is travelling to the Gulf today for talks with allies about reopening the Strait of Hormuz. This is, of course, in the wake of the ceasefire between Iran and the US. We hear he's also going to be meeting British servicemen and women in the region, thanking them for the work that they've been doing to intercept drones. What's your response to that breaking news?
Well, it's not really news. The Prime Minister is desperately trying to regain some credibility, having been slow and indecisive throughout this situation. He's changed positions. He was opposing the United States using their own aircraft from British bases. Then he was in favour of it. He delayed the decision to deploy British naval assets. He left British military personnel and our allies in the region not properly defended. And now he's finally engaging properly with this situation. Unfortunately, he has cost this country credibility on the world stage. And I know a lot of our friends and allies in the region and beyond are very disappointed in Britain's response, and that is entirely because of decisions that Keir Starmer failed to make.
Well, I could imagine that the people of Cyprus might be wondering, where were you, Prime Minister, when we were being attacked by Hezbollah drones? Emmanuel Macron was on the ground in Cyprus, lending his support to the Cypriots at that time. Can I ask you, though, about the relationship, Sir James, with the United States? Well, the special relationship will emerge, I'm sure, intact. That personal relationship between Trump and Stammer, it's on the floor, isn't it?
Well, it's quite clear now that President Trump does not respect Keir Starmer at all. I mean, Keir Starmer was sycophantic initially, waving around that offer of a state visit almost immediately. He did not show strength. He was shown to be indecisive, as I say, sycophantic, desperately trying to win favour with the US president when he went to America, and then came back to the UK to try and sound tough at the dispatch box. And the thing is, you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth at the same time. The United States have seen that. His personal relationship with the president of the US, I think, is now beyond repair. But worse than that, the UK system, the wider diplomatic and defence and intelligence system, has always had a very strong relationship with the United States of America, and I worry that that system-to-system relationship has been damaged because Keir Starmer basically is such a weak and ineffective leader.
Do you welcome President Trump announcing this ceasefire in Iran? Do you have hope that it will hold? Do you have hope that the Strait of Hormuz will open and hopefully bring down prices here in Britain?
Well, the ceasefire is good news, and those 2 weeks now need to be used and used fully. Iran needs to change its behaviour. That is absolutely key. Its pursuit of a nuclear weapon, the abuse of its own people internally, the interference with other countries in the region, its state sponsorship of terrorism, these things have got to stop. But also its claims to have complete authority over the Straits of Hormuz are completely unacceptable. So this is an important ceasefire, but let's not waste this 2 weeks. Let's make sure that the conditions are in place for a permanent end to the military actions, but that does mean a change of behaviour from Iran.
You were mentioning just before about the credibility of the UK being somewhat diminished in the Gulf region and, of course, in Cyprus with the events of recent weeks. How important is it, given what we've seen in terms of a lacklustre response, especially with the maritime forces that we have or don't have, how important is it for this government now to really start being serious about defence, to get that defence investment plan published for a start?
Well, the government has not taken defence seriously, nowhere near seriously enough. So we have been calling for a long time for at least 3% of GDP to be spent on defence. James Cartledge, Kemi Badenoch, I mean, they both happen to be good friends, but nevertheless, they have really led the charge on demanding that the government publish this defence investment plan. Now, that sounds all a bit technical, but basically it explains to the British military what they've got to spend, what money they have available to buy equipment, to buy ammunition, but also it tells industry what we need them to produce. And the delay in that document has meant the British Armed Forces don't know what's coming next, British defence sector doesn't know what's coming next, and therefore we are asking our armed forces to defend us, to defend our interests internationally, to reassure our allies around the world with one arm tied behind their back. Again, the government's indecision, this row between the Treasury and the Defence Secretary and the Prime Minister, is hampering our ability to defend ourselves and our friends. And it's just not good enough. And it's causing real anxiety amongst our friends in the region and beyond.
But that's a criticism that you could make of successive governments, couldn't you, including the previous Tory government, that they didn't take defence seriously and they failed to invest in our armed forces, and that leaves us in the situation that we face today.
Well, Kemi's made it clear that when we got things wrong during our time in government, we will recognise that and we will make sure we do things differently. We had a very different set of circumstances when we were in government. We didn't have this conflict in the Middle East. We didn't have the threats that we are now seeing from Russia, not just towards Ukraine, but more widely. But we recognise that we could and indeed should have perhaps spent more on defence. But the difference is we've recognised when we didn't do things right, and we're setting about changing our behaviour. The Labour government has been warned from day one that they need to give certainty over defence. They have chosen to increase the welfare budget rather than invest that money in defence. That was a decision that they made this year. And that is completely unacceptable. So when the world is as dangerous as it is, giving a massive, massive multi-billion-pound increase to the welfare bill, rather than properly funding our armed forces, I'm sorry, is completely unacceptable. And they can't blame us for that. That is a decision they made because Keir Starmer wants to buy votes from his own backbenchers.
Well, talking about those decisions, obviously there's the financial decisions when it comes to the economy, the prices that people are paying for the likes of fuel at the pumps, the heating of homes, etc. What do you think the Chancellor should be doing now to try to offset the burden on these people?
Well, we've got to remember that a huge part of the cost of fuel in the UK, whether at the petrol pump or household domestic fuel, is tax. And this government is obsessed with putting up taxes. So we've set out a cheap energy plan. Claire Coutinho has set out in detail how we would open oil and gas fields in the North Sea. These are currently fields that the Norwegians, our Norwegian friends and neighbours, are drawing energy from, but we are not. We would reduce the tax burden. We would commit to nuclear energy. So we have a full plan which would bring down the cost of bills immediately and also ensure we have fuel security and permanently lower bills going into the future. Again, the Labour government could start doing this stuff today. And they're failing to do so. So we've got a plan and we're chomping at the bit to actually deploy that plan because we know that people need relief right now and Labour is sitting on their hands.
So James Cleverley, we're out of time with you, I'm afraid, but thank you very much for joining us this morning on GB News Breakfast.
Thank you.
Let's speak to GB News political correspondent Olivia Utley, who joins us in the studio now. And listening across to that interview, Liv, what do you make of what you heard there from Sir James?
Well, I think, to be honest, some of the criticism of Keir Starmer won't really hit home. When he talks about Keir Starmer dilly-dallying, not getting involved in the war quickly enough. Well, that's something which the British public are on the Prime Minister's side about. 70% of the public think that Keir Starmer made the right decision, and only about 18% think that Britain should be more involved in this war than they are now. So I'm not sure if that criticism really hits home. I think you asked definitely the right question there to James Cleverley about defence and about the Conservatives' lack of defence spending when they were in government. And I thought his answer was really, really interesting. He says, well, we didn't have the problems that we have now. We didn't have the war in Ukraine. We didn't have the war in Iran. The entire point of defence spending is obviously that you get your arsenal ready for when things like this do happen. And the Conservatives were a little bit naive if they didn't see things like this coming on the horizon in the 14 years that they were in government. So I don't think that will hit very hard either. I thought where the Conservatives are strong at the moment is on this issue of what does Rachel Reeves do now to help families struggling with the cost of living crisis brought about by this war. And the Conservatives' policy, and also actually the Reform and the Lib Dems' policy, is to lower fuel tax. Obviously, that wouldn't actually be that damaging for the Treasury because the revenue that they would receive would still be higher than it usually is because of these inflated oil prices. But at the moment, that is something which Rachel Reeves is steadfastly refusing to do. We'll have to see if she changes her mind over the coming weeks. Of course, we will hopefully see fuel prices come down a little now as a result of this ceasefire, but let's see how it all shapes up in the coming weeks.
OK, Olivia, thank you very much. And we have a double treat for you this morning because we have your screen husband from Saturday Morning Live, Charlie Peters, here. Charlie, in terms of the ceasefire, it's early days, of course, but we're getting a demonstration of what Benjamin Netanyahu said yesterday in terms of not including Lebanon in that ceasefire. They bombed in southern Lebanon again this morning.
And the coastal city of Tyre, there's an evacuation warning active there. And Hezbollah have said in the last few moments, speaking to Reuters, that they think that they will be taking part in this ceasefire now. They believe that they are under its remit. So the pressure will rise on Israel on that point, whether or not Israel is part of this ceasefire deal with Hezbollah and Lebanon. I think that'll rely very much on what President Trump thinks when he wakes up, doesn't it, rather? Until then, we're not really sure what that situation is. More broadly, though, when we look at the state of play with this ceasefire, there is a possibility, of course, that in this 2-week period that talks fail, that we go back to a war footing. I don't think we're going to see an immediate removal of American or Israeli forces from their forward positions. There's going to be very much a high alert maintained on offensive and defensive postures. That will keep lots of American bombers in Britain, for example. And just to echo what Olivia was saying previously about how it's not popular in the United Kingdom, Sir Keir Starmer would have been in a very tricky position indeed if Donald Trump's threats issued yesterday were carried out and included assets launched from Britain, because what he was talking about in his post on Truth Social yesterday, and indeed the wider strikes he was mooting, that certainly doesn't sound like defensive strikes to me. So it would have been some serious questions there for Sir Keir Starmer. If these talks fail and we do go back to a war posture, that will be very severe. But there is also another fear, which is that even if these talks do hold and there isn't a major shift, then we could be put into a situation where Iran is on the back foot, it's depleted, it's under threat, it's heavily sanctioned, but still sitting on a significant stockpile of uranium. If that is the case, it's very hard to see this 38-day conflict as anything other than a major strategic failure for the Israelis, who clearly bounced the Americans into this war, believing that regime change was possible. They might, in fact, end up with a weakened but more severe resistance from Iran in the end. OK, Charlie Peters, thanks very much.
Now, just coming up to 18 minutes past 8, let's take a look at some other stories coming into the newsroom on this Wednesday morning.
A young British woman has died while visiting Vietnam, reportedly at a road accident. Local media report that 19-year-old Orla Waite was travelling in the Ha Giang Loop area of northern Vietnam when she fell from the back of a motorcycle.
The Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, has called for doctors to be banned from striking. Resident doctors began their 15th strike in the past 3 years yesterday, while hundreds of BMA staff also began a 48-hour walkout on Monday in an ongoing row over pay. Mrs Badenoch said the BMA was betraying the members, the patients that its members had sworn to serve.
A 21-year-old man has died after being stabbed at the Viewpoint on Primrose Hill in London. A murder investigation has been launched by the Metropolitan Police after officers were called to the popular park. They said also that a second man, believed to be in his 20s, was found on nearby Regent's Park Road, also having suffered stab wounds.
Now, should we get a check on the weather? Because I think it's a pretty picture today.
Oh, it's lovely.
25 degrees, I think. Annie Shuttleworth's got all the details for you.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update, brought to you from the Met Office. Potentially the warmest day of the year so far. Today even warmer than yesterday, in fact. But it is turning cloudier and wetter across some more northwestern areas. We're off to a sunny start, though, for the bulk of the UK, particularly across parts of England and Wales. And that sunshine should last much of the day. It will feel quite warm, actually, today. The winds are lighter, particularly across eastern areas. But across the west, thicker clouds, still some brighter spells and very little in the way of rain. Now, temperatures could reach as high as 26 or possibly 27 degrees across the southeast. For parts of the Midlands in the low 20s, quite widely. So a particularly warm day, especially for the time of year. Now that leads us into a fairly mild night as well. We could see some mist and fog around across parts of western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland as well. But temperatures will remain in the mid-teens for many of us into this evening, and the sun should last across more eastern areas into the early part of the evening as well. But you can see that cloud starting to spread into parts of Wales, into the southwest as well. North parts of Cornwall seeing some cloud by the time we get to Wednesday night. Now, the rain becomes more persistent into Thursday morning for Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland. Elsewhere, it should be a dry and relatively clear night, though there is a risk of some mist and fog patches developing by Thursday morning. It will be a slightly cooler night for more western areas, still a fairly mild night in the east, however, and still a bright, warm day for many eastern areas through Thursday. A big change, though, further west, particularly for parts of Northern Ireland, Scotland, as well as parts of West Wales through Thursday. Some areas could be a good 10 degrees cooler than today into tomorrow. So big change to cooler, more unsettled and wetter weather by Thursday. So please do enjoy the sunshine if you can. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Well, still to come, it's day 2 of the resident doctors' strike as they take 6 days of action following a long-running dispute with the government over pay. Jack Carson will be joining us on the picket line next.
Every week there are stories that shape the national conversation.
We'll be discussing that.
And on Saturday Morning Live, we break them down.
Is that true? This is fascinating, isn't it?
The politics, the headlines, the debates everyone's talking about.
And the questions that you want answered.
Do you think that was a legitimate attack for him to make?
What led you to set up this fantastic movement?
You know what? It's a great question, Olivia.
So what are you waiting for?
Your weekend starts here. Saturdays at 10 a.m. only on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Marmalade, a British breakfast staple, could soon be getting a rebrand under a post-Brexit food deal with the EU.
Well, the new agreement lines Britain up to EU rules, which have changed since Brexit. This could force shops to rename marmalade citrus marmalade, as Britain aligns with those new European rules.
I think they might be taking the pith on this one. What do you reckon? Joining us now to discuss these changes is Jane Hassel-McCosh, marmalade maker and founder of the Dalmain World of Marmalade Awards. Wow, that sounds pretty impressive. What do you make of this, Jane?
Well, I think it's interesting. I think it's actually very good news. I think that why are they having to redefine it? Well, the answer is that marmalade is on the up. Our citrus marmalade is on the up. And so it now really does have to be defined. Whereas when I started this competition 21 years ago, we got 60 jars coming in, all good Seville orange marmalade. And today we have the most incredible assortment of entries. We get entries from artisan, small commercial producers. And that's where I think the problem will be, that all the artisan producers are going to have to remake their labels, which is expensive and difficult.
Expensive and pointless. I mean, to me, marmalade is very clear. It's a sort of orangey, jammy thing, and it's very nice. And if there's a sort of marmalade that's not made with oranges, that's made with another sort of either citrus or indeed non-citrus fruit, as the Europeans call their marmalades, which I don't really think counts as marmalade, but anyway, that's by the by. We're now saying that orange marmalade can't be just called marmalade.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to breakfast. It's 25 minutes past 8. Now, it's day 2 of the resident doctors' strike as they take 6 days of action following a long-running dispute with the government over pay and conditions.
Well, the British Medical Association said last month that the latest offer received from the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, was insufficient, and the union accused the government of shifting the goalposts.
Well, 95% of appointments are still going ahead, but the NHS warns that this disruption will be significant, with costs now estimated at £3 billion since the strikes began.
Well, GB News national reporter Jack Carson joins us now from Dudley in the West Midlands. Good morning to you, Jack. They're resolute, clearly, day 2 of 6.
Absolutely. 15th set of industrial action in this long-running dispute over pay. That's despite over the last 4 years, resident doctors have received a 33% pay rise, recently getting a 3.5% pay rise as part of an annual review. But it's the look at those pay rises and how much doctors are paid compared to what it was in 2008. That's the reasoning really behind the need for negotiations with the British Medical Association with the government. They say that with inflation, it's still down on what they were earning back in 2008. There's criticism of that use of inflation comparison, because the British Medical Association are using the RPI measure of inflation. The government say that isn't right, but the British Medical Association come back to them with that and say that is how things like student loans are measured, and so it's only fair that they use the same measurement. But of course, with this industrial action, it's no doubt that it is going to cause disruption. The Health Secretary saying that 95% of appointments are still going ahead, but senior medics, we know, are having to come in to try and help out in the emergency departments, and resident doctors make up about half, 50% really, of the medical workforce in the NHS. So if you take the majority of those who might be British Medical Association members out of work for over the next 6 days, it is naturally going to cause disruptions, not just to basic appointments, checkups, but also cancer appointments. We know patients with cancer have been saying over the past 24 hours that they've had different appointments cancelled. So this is no doubt going to have an impact. Since these strikes began back in 2022, NHS England data suggests that 1.7 million appointments have been cancelled because of industrial action, and so we enter another round of strikes. The British Medical Association saying that the government moved the goalposts, weren't committed, and have reduced the level of investment they said that they were going to make. But the Department for Health and Social Care saying that they'd offered a generous deal on the table, and actually they weren't going to negotiate over pay. Wes Streeting yesterday saying that they negotiated in good faith, and actually that the resident doctors were by a country mile the best winners of the entire public sector workforce when it comes to pay rises. As you were saying, £3 billion this industrial action has cost the government since it started back in March 2023. £50 million a day, it is thought. Now, we don't necessarily know the full details that the government and the British Medical Association were trying to negotiate. It's thought that it was a package of measures which included covering things like out-of-pocket expenses, exam fees, a faster pay progression through the different salary bands, as well as doctor speciality training posts that doctors could move into following their graduation. But the first of these speciality posts, which was meant to be 1,000 of them, them. They were meant to be created this summer, but the government has withdrawn those after the British Medical Association announced that it was going to take strike action. The government maintains that it will not negotiate over pay, particularly with resident doctors, that it would have to come from other measures, like, as we were saying, things like out-of-pocket expenses, because of the fact that the government believe they've had a very good deal with pay over the past few years. 33% in pay rises, a recent 3.5% pay rise as part of an annual review. And so we've, again, at this stalemate between the government of the day and the British Medical Association, and this strike enters its second day.
That to us live from Dudley. Well, the question is, how is this impacting on NHS patients? Let's speak to one now, Danica, who joins us this morning on GB News Breakfast. Very good morning to you, Danica. How are these strikes affecting you?
Basically, it's quite scary. I'm in a position, I'm one of them in a position amongst a lot of others whose life basically lies in the balance of doctors, surgeons, etc. It's at the moment it's like suffering. You have to suffer your symptoms, which are kind of minor at the moment. Like, it's supposed to be minor, what they would consider as minor conditions or minor symptoms. Well, because of all this backlog, the waiting time for even a scan like an MRI, let alone a procedure, to be done, it is really scary to be waiting, because these conditions can end up being life-threatening, basically. The impact's a lot with your family, your finances. You know, it's emotional, it's stressful. I believe, you know, it would just prevent a lot if these strikes weren't happening, maybe, of all the backlog that's already happened from the COVID. It's getting really, really, really bad.
Well, Danica, what is your opinion then of these junior doctors who have decided that they're going to go out and strike? Not that long after they were given a very significant pay rise.
Wow. I think we all would all like, you know, pay rise in all works that we, you know, that we all do and have, you know, part in doing. It's, especially if there's a pay rise, it would be nice to start getting looked at as patients seriously and listened to. As it stands, as I said, it's really daunting and quite scary. The fact that there aren't any, on my experience, I've not long been discharged from hospital. To me, they seem like, I call them nurse doctors. They didn't seem as trained or experienced or even compassionate as what I'm like used to like years ago. They seem to just want to get you in and get you out, or just allow you to wait for answers. You ask and you cannot find out exactly what next step you're going to. So basically you get sent home. You're either in hospital with no answers or you're at home with no answers.
Okay.
It's not very nice either way, to be honest. It's really, really scary.
It's not, Danica. Well, we wish you better, and we really hope you get seen soon, and we really hope that you're given a surgery date as soon as possible. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and for sharing your story. Thank you.
Thank you, Danica.
Thank you.
Now it's time to catch up with the latest weather forecast.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the M80, the northbound carriageway is restricted at junction 4 after a vehicle fire. On the M4 eastbound at junction 33, congestion is building on the off-slip near Capel Lanilton. On the M6 southbound near Warrington between junction 21A and junction 21, a road traffic collision has shut 3 of 4 lanes, with delays around 1.5 hours. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast and London North Western Railway have major engineering work at London Euston, with a reduced service between Bedford and Bletchley. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
So, of course, that wasn't the weather. Well,
it was our traffic and travel update.
Well, which you need a nice day to be able to travel safely.
Yeah, I know what you meant.
It's sunny out there, apparently.
Very. Hottest day of the year so far, just so you know.
So still to come, it was a victorious night for Arsenal with the last-minute goal putting them 1-0 up in the Champions League. We'll have all the very latest with Aidan McGee after the break.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
the Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's sports time. Aidan McGee is here with us, and a much-needed result for Arsenal, Aidan.
Oh, you can say that again. I mean, look, they were really struggling for a couple of games, weren't they? The Carabao Cup final against Manchester City, which they were expected to win at Wembley. They're overwhelming favourites, but they managed to lose that. And then, of course, elimination in the FA Cup at Southampton last Saturday. So to travel to Portugal against an informed Sporting Lisbon, who had won their previous 17 home games all in a row, which is quite outstanding from them, a great level of consistency. But Arsenal got the job done. Their goalkeeper David Raya, who was playing for Southport in non-league about 7 years ago. He must be one of the best goalkeepers in the world now. He kept them in it certainly early on, and that's what they did, Mark. They weathered the storm in the first 20 minutes and struck late, and it gives them a huge advantage going to the Emirates next week, which will be the second leg, and I'm going to be at the game, which I'm very much looking forward to.
Yeah, not just a huge advantage within the Champions League. What it's also going to do, I think, is give them that much-needed boost of confidence in the final furlong as far as the Premier League is concerned.
You could see from the players afterwards there was a bit like Rory McIlroy going into the Masters. They seemed unburdened slightly, because there were questions asked on the run-in. Let's face it, it was unrealistic for any club to be expected to win a quadruple. But nonetheless, if they could get the Premier League, which I think they will do, if they could add the Champions League to that as well, it would be the best season in their history, no question about it. It's Liverpool's turn tonight as well. They go to Paris against PSG. They won this game last year 1-0, but lost the second leg. PSG, of course, went on to win the tournament, beating 4 or 5 English clubs along the way. But let's hear from Arne Slot right now.
This club has always shown that in tough moments they stand up again, and I think we've had a lot of tough moments, and we've stood up a few times, but then fallen down again. And now we have to show that mentality again of just keep going and picking yourself up after disappointment, because this club has shown also many times that we can do very special things in difficult circumstances.
Well, of course, a former Arsenal player has got some issues, questions to answer on his tax affairs.
Yeah, we shouldn't really laugh, but it's very funny, I have to say. This is Samir Nasri, who joined Arsenal for £12 million from Marseille in 2008, went on to have a great career in England, went to Manchester City, won the Premier League title there, played numerous times for France. Well, he apparently lives in Dubai these days, except the French tax authorities would beg to differ. So this goes back to his tax affairs in 22-23, I think it is. He claimed he was living in Dubai and didn't have any tax owed or tax liability to France. And they're claiming that, judging by his Deliveroo account, which recorded 221 Deliveroo orders to an address in Paris. That's a lot of lamboonas, isn't it? That's a lot of special fried rice. And they say that how can you possibly have been living in Dubai when all these orders were booked to come to your address in Paris? So he's got a little bit of a problem on his hands trying to prove that. We should say, though, that he denies all wrongdoing. It's just an allegation at this stage. But I've worked out it's a Deliveroo order every 36 hours, roughly. And if you see him, though, he still looks quite svelte, so it's not. Maybe someone else is ordering it on his behalf.
Must be.
So maybe they could, find out what he normally orders from Deliveroo to prove if this was him and not someone else. Possibly,
but it could be. Look, I mean, it's no laughing matter because he potentially owes £5 million in backdated tax. I mean, that's a lot of Deliveroos as well, isn't it?
It is a lot of Deliveroos. All right, Agent, thank you very much. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Now, at 8:42, just time to tell you about the Great British Giveaway now, and it's a goodie, isn't it, worth £92,000.
Absolutely, camper van and money in hand. Who could want anything more?
Here are all the details that you need.
Everything you need to enjoy a super summer could be on us this year, as you could drive away with this very latest Benivan 4-berth camper van, worth over £67,000. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, this camper van is fully equipped with its own kitchen, bathroom, dinette and plenty of storage. Plus, you can drive it on your existing licence. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also get your summer sorted with a further £25,000 in tax-free cash that you could spend however you like. In total, this prize package is worth over £92,000. So make sure you secure your place in the draw. For another chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. The winner may be contacted live after all entry routes have closed. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck!
Yes, good luck.
OK, still to come, shocking new migrant crime statistics on Albanian criminals have emerged. More on that and the rest of the papers with Penny Smith and Jennifer Powers. There they are.
But first, here's your forecast across Europe.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, if you're heading away for the Easter break, well, low pressure brings unsettled weather to the Canary Islands as well as parts of Portugal throughout the next few days. We've got 15 degrees in Madeira, risk of showers, and 14 degrees in Lisbon, quite cool for the time of year. Elsewhere, though, as we look further east across parts of Spain and Italy, it's looking much warmer and brighter. And the showery weather that's been affecting more western areas, eastern areas of the Mediterranean looks to move away, and it will turn brighter for Greece as well. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Bin collections are changing. Under the Simpler Recycling initiative, households in England will have 4 bins to make it easier to separate waste. In North Yorkshire, the council's already started rolling out the government mandate.
We've collect paper and cardboard separate, then we've got glass, cans, plastic and all other recyclables in another bin, and then finally our general waste bin. And the idea is just by separating them, they're actually more valuable to us as an authority, but they're also more usable in the recycling industry. Good quality recyclates, they have a higher value, and therefore we can sell them for more, so therefore in theory we shouldn't have to put your council tax up, or we can spend that elsewhere on other things, potholes or wherever else it is.
Northallerton resident David Toon sees the benefit of recycling, but is apprehensive of the new scheme.
I see it as being a lot more faff, and I just think that whether it'll achieve anything, time will tell. If it works out, all well and good, you know. If it's not another different day, if it's all done, if it's not another day, so you're having to remember to put this out that day, and if they keep them together, it helps.
I've got no problem with splitting up recycling, but how many bins are you going to have? And then remembering which bins go out on which day.
I'm not up for another bin. I talk a lot of rubbish, but I'm not up for another bin.
With a new universal standard of recycling being implemented in every region, bin day should now be a breeze. But make sure to check what can and can't go in the rubbish or face a costly fine. Anna Riley, GB News, Northallerton.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. We're going through the papers this morning with Penny Smith and Jennifer Powers. Morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Jennifer, let's have a look, shall we, at the Telegraph this morning, which has a story about one Albanian migrant being jailed every 2 days.
Yes, quite extraordinary statistics today on page 8 of the Telegraph. One that really struck out for me was that 9% of all prison inmates in the UK are from Albania. Mm-hmm. I knew it was a lot, but I didn't know it was that many. And this story talks about you know, as you say, one Albanian migrant being jailed every 2 days, and that they cost around £60,000 a year to jail an inmate in UK prisons. So all adding up quite a bit. I mean, we do have a deportation deal with Albania, so I do wonder if we could be a bit quicker about repatriating some of these prisoners, especially as the vast majority are done for things like theft and burglary.
Yeah, and not give them a relocation fee as well of several £1,000s, as many have been getting.
Yeah, it does seem an area where the authorities could be a bit more joined up in terms of deporting these criminals, especially, as I said, it's one of the few countries where we signed a deportation deal.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's not as though when they're going back, they're in danger of their lives or, you know, whatever.
You can holiday in Albania.
You can, yes, exactly. I was looking at it. It looks like a beautiful country.
Yeah.
Beautiful country to go to.
Penny, let's have a look at this story, shall we? Which might not be good news for us, especially if we're doing these breakfast shifts. How regular bedtimes are good for the heart.
Yes. So it's about the regularity rather than when you go to bed. So I think that's the point, is people who go to bed at inconsistent times. And now they're saying sleep less than 8 hours a night might be twice as likely to suffer major heart problems. They're talking about heart attacks or strokes. The thing is, when you look at these figures, twice as likely, 8 hours, etc., we all know that stress is actually also terribly bad for us, and that if we, therefore, spend our time going to bed at irregular times and stressing about how little sleep we're getting, that is probably not very good for us either. But I think the consistency seems to be the clue here, is about if you go to bed, if you try and go to bed at, I don't know, whatever time you're going to bed, even if it's 9 in the morning or whatever, as long as you keep on doing it that way and try and get as much sleep as you possibly can, it's better for you. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, getting to bed is one thing, but actually getting off to sleep and getting a good settled night's sleep, I find increasingly difficult as I get older.
Yeah, no,
I used to sleep the sleep of the dead when I was younger, and now it's a few hours and I'm just aching.
I know, I think a lot of viewers out there will share your and my experience of that. I think, you know, Ellie is very fit and healthy, so she probably has no trouble sleeping.
I do really suffer with my sleep. Yeah.
Do you?
I do think it's getting harder to get older, yeah. I used to be able to just, felt like passing out every night. It was so easy. But now I have earplugs and an eye mask and...
Yeah, and then it's funny whenever you speak to a teenager and it's 1 o'clock and they say in the afternoon and they say they've just woken up and you think, oh, no, I know. But also my first thought is, oh, well, they were out partying till 3, and they go, no, I went to bed at about 10. Yeah. But they've slept right through. Isn't it joyful?
It does sound lovely. Waking up not feeling tired. Oh, bliss. Wouldn't that be nice?
Joy.
Jennifer, let's ask you about the issues obviously related to Iran. This is, in particular, the cost of fuel and jet fuel, which is actually leading to some of these more remoter communities in the UK being cut off.
Yes, so there's news today around some of the regional airlines cancelling flights from places like Cornwall and the Channel Islands, which, you know, is understandable considering that kerosene, which fuels these flights, has gone up. You know, it's more than doubled since the conflict began on the 28th of February. And, you know, the airlines have tried to keep the flights going by passing on some of those costs to consumers, but the market doesn't necessarily bear that, and so they've seen bookings slump, and as a response, they've looking at cutting back or indeed cancelling some of the flights. Now, of course, today with the ceasefire news, if that 2-week ceasefire holds beyond that, then hopefully we will see these regional flights being put back on the schedule, because it really does impact people's lives if they need to, you know, they rely on these regional flights. They are a lifeline. If you need to perhaps go to hospital or, you know, go to work in other parts of the UK. I mean, these communities very reliant on these flights.
Well, oil prices have gone down, haven't they? They've gone down to $100 a barrel. There's quite a sharp fall since that ceasefire announced, so who knows? I mean, it's all up in the air.
Penny, in about 30 seconds, just been the Easter weekend, hasn't it? And lots of people going on lovely rural walks. trying to get a picture with a Highland cow.
Can we just stop trying to get really close to the Highland cows, or having to move them in a place in Kent, I think it's Butser Hill. Now, in Hampshire, actually. But anyway, there's also another place in a reserve in Kent. And people are trying to trying to get really, really close, these Highland cattle, the ones with the nice shaggy fringes. And it stresses the animals out. So just have a thought first before you go and take your Instagram photo.
Very good message.
There you go, you've been warned.
Yeah.
Stay away from the Highland cows.
Exactly.
Penny, Jennifer, thank you very much for your company this morning. It's a pleasure.
They've got a fine pair of horns. I wouldn't be going anywhere near them.
I know. Wouldn't want to be on the pointy end of that.
Warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update, brought to you from the Met Office. Potentially the warmest day of the year so far. Today even warmer than yesterday, in fact. But it is turning cloudier and wetter across some more northwestern areas. We're off to a sunny start, though, for the bulk of the UK, particularly across parts of England and Wales. And that sunshine should last much of the day. It will feel quite warm, actually, today. The winds are lighter, particularly across eastern areas. But across the west, thicker clouds, still some brighter spells and very little in the way of rain. Now, temperatures could reach as high as 26 or possibly 27 degrees across the southeast, for parts of the Midlands in the low 20s quite widely. So a particularly warm day, especially for the time of year. Now that leads us into a fairly mild night as well. We could see some mist and fog around across parts of western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland as well. But temperatures will remain in the mid-teens for many of us into this evening, and the sun should last across more eastern areas into the early part of the evening as well. But you can see that cloud starting to spread into parts of Wales, into the southwest as well. North parts of Cornwall seeing some cloud by the time we get to Wednesday night. Now, the rain becomes more persistent into Thursday morning for Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland. Elsewhere, it should be a dry and relatively clear night, though there is a risk of some mist and fog patches developing by Thursday morning. It will be a slightly cooler night for more western areas, still a fairly mild night in the east, however, and still a bright, warm day for many eastern areas through Thursday. A big change, though, further west, particularly for parts of Northern Ireland, Scotland, as well as parts of West Wales through Thursday. Some areas could be a good 10 degrees cooler than today into tomorrow. So big change to cooler, more unsettled and wetter weather by Thursday. So please do enjoy the sunshine if you can. Bye-bye.
Warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. In Scotland, the A9 southbound is closed for essential roadworks between Eckline and the public transport link. On the M4 eastbound, there's congestion at junction 33 near Capel Lanilturn. In Cheshire, a serious crash on the M6 southbound at junction 21A to 21 near Warrington has closed 3 lanes, causing delays around 1.5 hours. Traffic should clear between 10:30 and 10:45 this morning. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast and London North Western Railway have major engineering work at London Euston, with reduced service between Bedford and Bletchley. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's a prize package worth over £92,000. There's a totally tax-free £25,000 in cash that you'll be able to spend on anything you like this year. Plus, you'll also get to drive away in a brand new Benevan 122 camper van. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, this latest 2026 model comes fully loaded with everything you'd expect. For another chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. message or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Sir Keir Starmer will travel to the Middle East today as President Trump announces a last-minute ceasefire, pausing the war in Iran.
Well, taking to social media in the last hour, the Prime Minister said he welcomed the ceasefire, adding, "We must do all we can to support and sustain it."
Well, President Trump hailed today as the start of a golden age for the Middle East. But big questions remain. Will the ceasefire last? And what could the long-term implications be?
Also in the programme, grab your sunscreen. Today is set to be the hottest day of the year so far. We'll be live on the South Coast later in the show.
I've come to one of Britain's most favoured coastal towns as Brits swarm to the seaside to enjoy some sunny weather.
It's day 2 of the resident doctors' strike as they take 6 days of action following a long-running dispute with the government over pay and conditions.
Good morning. Another very warm one for the time of year to come today. That heat is not going to last through the rest of the week, though. You'll find out all the details with me a little later on.
Good morning, it's just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Ellie Costello.
And I'm Mark White. A very warm welcome to GB News Breakfast. And before we get on to our top story, I just want to bring you a further update on the situation in the English Channel with more migrant boats hitting the water, heading towards UK waters. The latest count we've got is 3 migrant boats that are making some progress towards UK waters. Another 2 migrant boats were in the water but suffered engine failure apparently and have now headed back to France, have been picked up by the French authorities, but 3 more are making progress towards UK waters. At least one has made it now into UK waters. Quick calculation tells you you're probably close to 200 just in these 3 boats that have made or are making progress so far. So that's the very latest. We were just mentioning in the opening titles there that the weather set to be the hottest day of the year. The winds are the crucial factor, though. They've died quite low in the channel, and that means that it's easily passable for these small boats to get off the beaches of France and towards the UK.
Yeah, it's perfect conditions, isn't it, for small boat crossings? But you're going to stay across that for us, aren't you, Mark?
Yep.
And bring us developments throughout the programme. Thank you. Well, let's talk about our top story this morning, which is that the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, is heading to the Gulf today for talks with allies about the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. This is, of course, in the wake of the ceasefire between the US and Iran. Well, GB News political correspondent Livia Utley joins us in the studio. What is the Prime Minister going to offer here, Liv? All we're hearing from him in his statement is he's going to offer support to sustain this ceasefire. What could that look like?
Well, we'll have to see what
what it looks like when he gets there. I think the problem with Donald Trump's midnight social media post announcing that the ceasefire is happening is that we have very, very few details from the American president over what exactly it's going to entail. Previously, the Prime Minister has spoken to European allies, talked about potentially helping guide ships through the Strait of Hormuz. Obviously, the huge question here is whether Donald Trump is going to accept Iran's request, demand that they are paid for every ship that goes through the Strait of Hormuz, and we don't yet have an answer. So it's not clear.
I can tell you, no way on earth. It's just not going to happen.
And if he doesn't, then what happens? Is that an end to the ceasefire? Does the strait close again? I mean, it's not clear at all what's going to happen. I think Keir Starmer is trying to get on the front foot. At some points in this war, it's felt a little bit as though Britain is on the back foot. When we saw France, for example, and Germany too, say immediately that it was going to support the US in this. Then, of course, we had Spain saying that it wasn't going to support the US, but at least every country there had a very clear opinion on the matter. Keir Starmer at times has been seeming to be sitting on the fence. And I think that's why he's acting so quickly now. Although, to be fair to the Prime Minister, his position is actually very popular. 70% of the country think that he did the right thing in not getting too involved in this war. Let's see what happens when he visits the Gulf today. Let's see what sort of conversations he gets involved in. As I say, at the moment, we have so few details on what this ceasefire is supposed to look like because it was arranged at the very last minute by Donald Trump, and so much of it is on social media, the classic Trumpian way of doing things.
Nevertheless, it is a positive development. The market's reacting positively. For instance, the FTSE 100 jumped by 2.5% to 268.28, which, you know, is good, is welcome. The hope is, as you say, Olivia, that we continue on a sort of a path that is constructive and they can actually have a more lasting ceasefire. Can I ask you, though, about Sir Keir Starmer's trip to that region? You know, there will be... Do we know if he's going to Cyprus? If he's not going to Cyprus, why not, given that that sovereign base was struck? Emmanuel Macron landed there in the days after this happened. No sign of Keir Starmer there at all.
And the French sent ships out when there was no British presence in the region defending people on the ground in Cyprus. And the Cypriots are not happy with the British at all about this. I mean, I think we should expect to see Keir Starmer in Cyprus, but as yet we have no confirmation on what exactly this trip will entail. As I say, I think part of that is due to the fact that it was all done so last minute last night, and the President has given very little indication of what this ceasefire means for America, how this ceasefire will hold if, for example, America doesn't agree to the Iranian terms of paying a tariff to Iran for every ship that goes through the Strait. As you say, though, Mark, this is good news. The markets have rallied. I think that we might see a dip in the markets in a little while because this seems to be a sort of relief rally, but it will actually take quite a long time for oil prices to go back to the level that they were at, and that is presuming that the ceasefire does hold. So it's temporary relief. Rachel Reeves will be definitely very relieved indeed. It might take the pressure off her to ease that fuel duty rise, which is supposed to be coming in September. There's political pressure from every party on the Chancellor to ease that fuel duty rise. This might take a little bit of that pressure off. And obviously, it's good news just leading up to those summer holidays where people will start booking their foreign holidays. The last thing that the government wants is sky-high oil prices. So the Prime Minister will be breathing a sigh of relief, but I think everything will become a lot clearer in the coming days. And I think we do definitely have to keep an eye on whether the Prime Minister goes to Cyprus. Well, we do understand he's going to meet British service women and men whilst he's visiting the Gulf, so it could very well be Cyprus. It'll be very interesting to see, Liv, what the reaction of those British servicemen and women will be to the Prime Minister. As Mark was reflecting, many of them will be saying, well, where were you? Where were you when Cyprus was attacked? Well, exactly. And also, if he does indeed go to Cyprus, what the reaction will be from those Cypriots. That there was rioting in Cyprus about the lack of British presence there, and the Cypriot people pulling away, saying that they didn't want the British base on Cyprus at all. Let's see if that anger is reflected in the Prime Minister's visit, or if, as he is clearly hoping, this visit to the Gulf manages to sort of get some diplomacy going again, paper over some of those cracks in that relationship. I think it all depends. Keir Starmer, I think is actually better when he is on the world stage than he is at home. He quite enjoys a foreign trip. Perhaps enjoys is putting it too flippantly, but he has spent 16% of his time as Prime Minister overseas. Perhaps he will be in his element on this trip, but we will have to see if that anger from British servicemen and women is reflected at the Prime Minister.
Yeah, I mean, and in terms of the domestic situation, the fallout from this crisis, we've still got issues around the sort of price of fuel. They are going to still, regardless of how optimistic this might be going forward, it's going to impact prices at the pump and prices of domestic fuel for quite some time.
Well, definitely. And as I say, you know, yes, the markets have rallied for now, but it is going to take a long time for oil prices to get back to anything like the level that they were. And of course, there are huge knock-on effects to this as well. It's not just prices at the pump or even the price of food from deliveries, etc., but it's also the inflation. We see inflation going up. That is probably why the Prime Minister has committed to lessening student loan repayment interest. Really fascinating to see how this all pans out.
OK, Olivia, thank you very much indeed. Well, let's speak now to Crime and Policing Minister Sarah Jones. Very good morning to you, Sarah. Can we start by talking about the Prime Minister, who has announced this morning that he's going to visit the Middle East as this ceasefire takes hold between the US and Iran? Why now? Where was he when Cyprus was attacked?
Well, the first thing to say is we welcome this ceasefire and we hope that the negotiations will go well and that we will end up with a peace where we can all get things back to normal. We have had a military presence in the region for the whole of the 5.5 weeks of this conflict, as you know, not in any offensive role at all, but in a defensive role where we have been protecting our citizens and our allies and our interests. The Prime Minister is going there today. He is going to do a number of things. Of course, our focus is on getting the Strait of Hormuz opened up, which is why we've been playing a leadership role with 40 of our allies working together on a plan to get that strait operating again. And of course, he will want to see and thank our brilliant personnel who are there shooting down drones and protecting our interests.
Leadership role. Leading who? It was our allies that came to our assistance off Cyprus when we were still struggling to get HMS Dragon off to that part of the eastern Mediterranean. It was France, it was Greece, it was the Netherlands that lent their warships to protect that vital base.
Our Typhoons, our jets were there from the get-go, as you know. Now, is there
they didn't stop the drones, so did they?
Our military, is there a challenge with our military capability? Yes, the Strategic Defence Review said we need to be much better at war readiness, and that is what we are doing. We are investing £270 billion this Parliament in our defence. That is the highest figure any time since the Cold War. We are clearing up the mess that we were left with, but it is not fair to say that we have not been there in that defensive role, because we have, and also we have been playing a leadership role doing the work with our 40 allies to work out how we can open the Strait of Hormuz in a way that is safe. Of course, the ceasefire is really positive, but those shipping companies are insurers. Everybody needs to be sure that they can operate in a safe way. And of course, that strait is so important for the cost of living here, which is why it's such a focus for this government.
We hear from you, government, all the time about how you're investing in defence. Where's the defence investment plan? It's been delay after delay. You've got industry that say they are really struggling now because they don't have that certainty about where defence investment is going to come from. When are we going to get this plan?
Well, I think the Prime Minister was asked about this just before recess, and he said it will be coming soon. We need to get it right. That investment is going in. We are upping our spending. And of course, you're absolutely right. We need to publish that investment plan, and we will do so soon.
What's going on with HMS Dragon? It's back in port now after technical failures. We're hearing this is to do with its water supply. First of all, this government was criticised for its sluggish response. It wasn't in the region when it needed to be. That was despite this 2-month build-up of US assets in the region. It was clear that something was happening. Then there wasn't the defence of RAF Akrotiri, and we had to have our allies defending that island. And now we have a situation where it was 4 weeks late to the Eastern Mediterranean in the first place. It's lasted 2 weeks, and now it's suffered maintenance issues. The whole thing is such an embarrassing saga for this government.
Well, as I said, the Strategic Defence Review said we need to be better at war readiness after the real cuts that we saw under the last government. We are putting that right, but they left us with fewer ships and, of course, a lot of them needing repairs. What's happened with HMS Dragon is it stopped for a planned logistical check, and there were some technical issues which will be resolved very quickly. As I said, we have a significant presence in the Gulf. We have done since before the war started, and we are supporting our allies in that region with a defensive measure, with the jets, with the Typhoons, and all of that activity. And I know that everybody will be grateful to those people who are there protecting our interests.
We're rapidly running out of time. Can I just ask you very briefly about the relationship going forward now between the US President and the British Prime Minister? The special relationship may survive, but their personal relationship here has been deeply damaged, hasn't it?
Well, we know that the relationship, as you say, is a very important one, and it will continue to be a very important one. We did not take part in this offensive that the President of the United States and Israel have embarked on. We want it to stop. We think that the language that the President used yesterday was wrong, and we need to make sure we're clear about that. But that relationship is an important one, and we will make sure it continues to be an important one.
And just briefly, you're here today to talk to us about what you're doing to tackle knife crime.
Yes, we have seen real progress since we were elected. Knife murders are down 27%. Knife crime overall is down 8%. It was up to 9% in the 2 years before the Conservatives came in. But today we're publishing our action plan, which is going to bear down on criminals to make sure we are focusing on the areas where knife crime happens the most, using live facial recognition, new technologies, knife arches, more police patrols, more police on our streets to make sure we reach that target, because knife crime matters very much to every single person in this country, whether it's through lived experience or through the fear of knife crime, and this government is determined to tackle it.
OK, Sarah Jones, thank you so much for joining us this morning on GB News Breakfast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pity we run out of time there, because I noticed in that remark from Sarah Jones condemning the language used by Donald Trump yesterday. But I'm sure the Trump administration might argue that it's that robust rhetoric from Donald Trump that has maybe brought the Iranians round the negotiating table.
Well, it's the language that the Iranians understand, isn't it? It's fire and brimstone.
Yeah.
Anyway, do stay with us, still to come. Today is set to be the hottest day of the year so far. We're going to be live on the South Coast next.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Every week, there are stories that shape the national conversation.
We'll be discussing that.
And on Saturday Morning Live, we break them down.
Is that true? This is fascinating, isn't it? The politics, the headlines, the debates everyone's talking about.
And the questions that you want answered.
Do you think that was a legitimate attack for him to make?
What led you to set up this fantastic movement?
You know what? It's a great question, Olivia.
So what are you waiting for?
Your weekend starts here. Saturdays at 10 a.m. only on GB News.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
It's going to be a scorcher. Isabel Fekulak has all we need to know in Bournemouth. Morning, Isabel.
Good morning to you both. I'm here in Bournemouth Beach, one of the very popular seaside spots on the coast here, and it's beautiful weather today. You can see the sun shining down on me, not a cloud in sight. Today we're going to reach highs of up to 24 degrees in some parts of the southeast, and definitely people here will be taking advantage. Lots of people out on the beach this morning, walking, running, even some in the ocean, surfing, swimming, and for many businesses along the front here, this is great news. Weather bringing in lots more customers, and I'm now at the front bike hire shop here, and I'm joined by the owner, Dave Pounds. Thanks for coming on. I mean, this weather, it must just be ideal for a business like yours.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when the sun comes out, you always get a lot of people down, lots of families about, especially over Easter. You got the kids off. So, yeah, it's been really good so far this Easter, and a day like today, there's no wind, so it's ideal for cycling. So, yeah, it's just what we need.
Brilliant, thank you. And many other businesses as well will definitely be taking advantage of this hot weather. Thanks for coming on, Dave. Fish and chips, ice cream, I'm sure they'll all be consumed today. Many Brits across the country going to the seaside today to enjoy the hottest day of the year so far.
Fantastic stuff, Isabel. Thank you so much.
And as if that sunshine wasn't enough for you, look, we brought our own little ray of sunshine here.
Oh,
Hello.
it's nice to see Andrew being our ray of sunshine. One morning only, we think.
Well, you never know.
Well, I'm doing Jubes this week because I'm back to spend some time with the kids for Easter. And then Miriam had to stay off because the kids are all ill, and they said, would you sit next to Andrew for the morning? And I said, how could I turn that down?
They had to hold a gun to her head.
Could we have one of your classic cat fights, please?
Please.
Don't know what they mean.
I have no idea what they're talking about. Either that or uncontrollable giggles. Anything could happen really in the next
There was
2.5
quite a lot of that,
hours.
wasn't there? We didn't get into trouble for that more than once.
What have you got on the show?
Well, we're talking about Trump a lot.
Yeah.
Obviously, my word, there's a... Well, I think we probably thought it was going to happen, didn't we?
But yes,
you and I said that yesterday.
But of course, the establishment media getting obsessed with the language rather than the results.
Yeah, exactly. What we now need to see is the Strait of Hormuz open, oil prices are falling, stock market's up 3%.
Well, Sir Keir's heading out there, so I'm sure...
Oh, that'll change everything.
Yes.
Good to arrive after the event, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the way that some of the press are reporting this morning, I was looking at the BBC this morning, and they are basically casting it as this is humiliating for President Trump. What did they want him to do? You can't have it both ways. You can't say that he's an erratic, crazy man who is going to annihilate a civilization. And when he doesn't do that, say, oh, well, how embarrassing that he didn't do that. So we're going to be looking at what this might mean this morning.
And guess who else is coming on the programme? Not one Turner, but two.
My daughter's coming up.
Oh!
Because she is devastated because she had a ticket for Kanye West at Wireless. And so her and all her friends were going, and I had her in tears yesterday afternoon. I said, if you feel strongly about this, Kiki, come on the telly and tell the world.
Oh, it's got the weather now, I think.
Oh, it's a shame.
Warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Potentially the warmest day of the year so far. Today even warmer than yesterday, in fact. But it is turning cloudier and wetter across some more northwestern areas. We're off to a sunny start, though, for the bulk of the UK, particularly across parts of England and Wales. And that sunshine should last much of the day. It will feel quite warm, actually, today. The winds are lighter, particularly across eastern areas. But across the west, thicker clouds, still some brighter spells and very little in the way of rain. Now, temperatures could reach as high as 26 or possibly 27 degrees across the southeast. For parts of the Midlands in the low 20s, quite widely. So a particularly warm day, especially for the time of year. Now that leads us into a fairly mild night as well. We could see some mist and fog around across parts of western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland as well. But temperatures will remain in the mid-teens for many of us into this evening, and the sun should last across more eastern areas into the early part of the evening as well. But you can see that cloud starting to spread into parts of Wales, into the southwest as well. North parts of Cornwall seeing some cloud by the time we get to Wednesday night. Now, the rain becomes more persistent into Thursday morning for Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland. Elsewhere, it should be a dry and relatively clear night, though there is a risk of some mist and fog patches developing by Thursday morning. It will be a slightly cooler night for more western areas, still a fairly mild night in the east, however, and still a bright, warm day for many eastern areas through Thursday. A big change, though, further west, particularly for parts of Northern Ireland, Scotland, as well as parts of West Wales through Thursday. Some areas could be a good 10 degrees cooler than today into tomorrow. So big change to cooler, more unsettled and wetter weather by Thursday. So please do enjoy the sunshine if you can. Bye-bye.
Warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News each and every week.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the A9000, it is closed southbound between Eckline and the public transport link for roadworks. On the A470 northbound at Nantgarv, there is congestion on the off-slip. On the M60 anti-clockwise between Junction 11 and Junction 10, a police incident has closed 2 of 3 lanes, with delays of around 1 hour. In Northamptonshire, the A14 eastbound at Junction 3 near Rothwell is shut after an overturned vehicle. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast and London North Western Railway report major engineering work at London Euston, with reduced service between Bedford and Bletchley. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I just decided to officially announce it now, but yeah, to